Well, that's weird. Apparently, we are not getting any audio on YouTube. What kind of horse hockey is that? All right. You're hearing it now.
I just heard you go, and then it cut off.
That's weird. Apparently, we are not getting any audio on YouTube.
I'm hearing it.
Okay, now let's see if you hear this. Let me start this real quick. That's bizarre. Did you hear that?
Yeah, we heard it.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'll start it over again. What the hell? I like the song. Let's do it again.
Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork.
You don't see the curvature of the earth. That stuff is flat.
Piecing up the puzzle, need a buster bubble. Evil gonna crumble, yeah? Sit down and be humble. Got the body about to fumble. You'll get mad cause at this fight I'm about your uncle.
And then they call me the liar. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable the pathetic techniques that they have to use to prove their heliocentric model.
Props at the president, Jeran got the evidence. Arrow slaying Jesuits and Zack is evident. That the earth electric and it's resonant. Your residence is heaven sent. I hope to settle in like some sediment. If we so wrong, why they lying to discredit it? That's not too intelligent. That's a guy, not an in court, but we ain't really in the settlement. It's time to awaken from the pseudoscience sedatives.
And welcome everybody to Globebusters Imagineering Space. I'm your host, Bob Xanadude60, and we are back with another show today. Isn't that special? Sorry about the little snafu at the beginning. You know, sometimes OBS gets a little buggy, and I noticed that it updated today when I turned it on, and then sometimes all you have to do is just restart it, and it works fine. And fortunately, that's all I had to do this time, but you just never know when it's going to do that, and it typically does it at always the wrong time. So, oh well, what do you do? One of these days, maybe I'll be able to afford a professional sound engineer. That'd be nice. So anyway, I titled today's show Imagineering Space because I'm really finding it so funny that the ballers, you know, they have lost literally on every front. They've lost on curvature. They've lost on sextants. They've lost on the black swan. They've lost literally on everything. There is no video evidence in existence. They've lost on the moon landings. They're clearly fake, and any 5-year-old could say, you know, could tell that by looking at the so-called LEM sitting on the moon, you know, in all of its cardboard glory and aluminum foil and you know, crepe paper and all that stuff. I mean, they have literally lost everything. They're doing the best
Homeless
they can.
tweaker shelterness.
Yeah, no doubt. Complete homeless tweaker shelter. And yet it is absolutely amazing, guys, because they will still go on and, you know, do these shows and claim that we don't know what we're talking about. And that, you know, that they completely strawman the hell out of us. And one of the things we're going to cover today, this ought to be pretty funny. I'll show you this real quick. Is in case you hadn't noticed or seen it today, there is a, oops, where did it go? Here it is. There's an interview that MC Toon, sorry about that, did with Dr. Danny Faulkner. Of course, you know, he's one of my favorite people. And you talk about an interview that is completely full of bullshit. You know, they have absolutely nothing to go on. It goes on and on and on and on about all the things they get wrong about astronomy. And of course, every single one of them is a straw man. Well, maybe not every single thing. I mean, there are some pretty stupid claims that flat earthers have made. But you know what? There's a lot more claims that ball earthers have made too. But it's just funny. They cherry pick those particular things. And yet they never, ever, ever address the things that are the absolute killers of the globe. It's like, where's the curvature? Where? Right? And stuff like that. And it goes on and on. Of course, we've talked about it for 7 years now. So they have nothing, but it's just funny because they try so hard to, you know, create straw mans, and they laugh at us, and they act like we do everything wrong. They seem to think that you can triangulate things with a curved surface. It went from, you know, the globe having a curvature that you know, blocked your horizon, or that was the horizon, to, well, there is no horizon. You can't ever see that. And it's absurd how they backtrack. So you got to just love it. And, you know, God bless them. They're trying hard, but they have completely lost this. And you just got to laugh at them. So anyway, we got that and a few other things to cover. Wanted to give you a little bit of an update on this moon landing fraud, the Bart Sibrel book that I've been reading this week. Wow, it's actually, I couldn't believe it. It's actually quite a good book. I can't believe some of the stuff that that poor dude went through to get this information and you know, to its sources and stuff. So pretty crazy stuff. And, you know, just other bits and pieces, and we'll see how the show goes after that. But before we do that, let's go ahead and introduce our cast today, our panel today, I should say. And first up, as always, is Jeran from Jeranism. How you doing, Jeran?
Bob, I'm doing so good. You don't want to know how good I'm actually doing. Par excellence, they say, right? And as far as a sound engineer, I already hired one. Unfortunately, he's 18 months old, so it's going to be a little bit time until he can actually do it. So that's the plan there. That's my plan as far as a sound engineer.
Yeah, but his rates are pretty cheap, though, right?
Oh, so cheap. So cheap. He doesn't ask for much. Occasional hugs, that's it. And just so everybody knows, please stop messaging me. Dave Weiss is not dead. I don't know if it's RV who started that rumor or what.
Yes, it is. God, I saw that the other day because he said he had COVID. He got over it. And he's trying to make Dave sound like he's some sort of shill because he said, yeah, I had COVID. You know, I probably did too. I don't know. I didn't test it. But there was a time when I got really sick, and it was probably just the flu. But hey, you know, you're not fashionable unless you say you had COVID. So whatever. But I don't know. It's just ridiculous. I don't even think COVID. Well, I'm not even going to say that. But anyway.
Right, we're on YouTube here. We're on YouTube. No, I just keep getting messages like, is Dave really dead? Is he okay? I'm like, why are you hearing this? So stop messaging me. He's fine. That's about it for me. Just doing well. California's weather is pretty nice. We're getting back to near summertime, and that's always dreadful for me because I live in a city where it gets to be about 100 for 90 days in a row. So.
Yes, and that is the exact reason why I left the San Joaquin Valley.
Yeah, not too much fun. Your electric bill goes from about $90 here during the winter, and then it goes to like $300 or $400. So it's fun.
Yeah, and you got to wonder what it's going to be like this year with all the crazy price increases.
Oh man, I don't know I don't really even know what gas we use here, but I get a bill from PG&E that is for, and I know PG&E does electric, but here they don't. We'd use Merced irrigation for electric, but we get a PG&E bill that's for gas, and it's usually anywhere between $4 and $8 a month. And then like 2 months ago, it was like $20. I was like, what the hell? We didn't even need more. And then this last month, it was 28. So I don't even know we didn't increase anything. So I guess that's just because of the gas increase in price. But how does the gas increase in price of double equate to my bill being almost 6 or 7 times? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, they're gonna blame it all on the whole Russian debacle, and
it's Putin's fault, is it? Oh man,
yeah.
I stand with the Ukraine.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, you
I
know,
know.
and to think though, like Nikola Tesla wanted to have electricity delivered to everybody free of charge, right? That was his whole vision. And I just imagine where our society would be if you didn't have to pay for the power bill. I mean, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it would be really nice, wouldn't it? And from what we're learning now these days, it's like in the days of Antiquitech, maybe a century or more ago, it's looking more and more. There's more and more evidence mounting that we had free power, and that's absolutely
Yeah.
astounding. It just makes you stand up and go, "What the hell is this world about?" If we can't even go back literally 100 years and find a coherent theory or a coherent timeline about what our history has actually been. It's absolutely
Hmm.
unbelievable. And I'm sure most flat earthers, are fully aware of this. And, the ballers, they don't care. They just think it's all nonsense. They think it's just a conspiracy theory. So, yeah. And in conspiracy theory, it actually is. But I guess it all depends on which side of the fence you're on there looking at it. So, anyway. So, all right. So next up we have John TheMorgile. How are you doing today, John? How's you're just south of me, so the weather's pretty cold down there too, aren't you, in Greenville?
Oh man, just yeah, I was well like yesterday it was so nice and sunny out and I got up and went to walk the dog and about froze my ass off. Today it's a little bit warmer, but yeah, I just can't wait for winter to be over, man. I really can't. I like the heat and ready to go out barefoot in it and stuff, man.
Yeah, me too. And we're getting there. It's I guess in a few more days next week it's maybe going to get the 70s or 80s again, which would be nice. So
Oh
that'll be
yeah.
good. We I think we may have planted a few of our plants in our garden a little bit early, but Zach's been out there trying to keep the little plants warm and so they don't die off. But yeah, it's interesting. Very cool. All
I'll
right.
have to come see your garden one day, man.
Yeah, we got the backyard is largely converted to garden, and of course, then after the garden, then you go down this hill, and we have our big river in the backyard, which is awesome. And it's
Oh
it's
wow.
it's a very cool backyard. I've never had a backyard anything like this. Um, I've never had a house anything quite like this. It's pretty cool. So I like
Oh
it.
yeah, I'll have to come see your place, man.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So all right, and last but not least, we have Mr. Austin Whitsitt. How you doing today, Austin?
Pretty good. Actually, I woke up this morning and I was super salty because it was like 44 degrees here. But I can't complain. It's 70 now, so beautiful always. And then I got all this stuff going on with the court cases, and we are getting married this Friday, and then we're
What's
having a meetup. Yeah, we're having a meetup the 20th, which is spring equinox. I think we're going to do it at a place called Newton Park in Fort Myers. So anyone wants to come and hang out, yeah, 20th, probably brunchish area. I'm trying to link up with Dr. Law. I think he said he's down to bring his grill and get some brunch going. So there's that.
Cool. Do we have anybody in the FE community that does marriages, or are you just going to have a normal preacher or whatever do that?
Um, yeah, my boy Frank Logic is gonna do it. I don't. We obviously don't actually care about the government giving us permission to get married. So you can do what's called an affidavit of marriage and stuff. But yeah, we just have my friend coming to do that because I guess it makes it a little less awkward that someone's kind of there to facilitate it. But that's about it. Yeah, not like concerning the government regulations, of course.
Yeah. Well, if you do it all legally, then of course you're privy to the tax uh penalties of being married and all that stuff. It used to
Yeah, they
used to
can
be
kick
that
rocks.
people said that, yeah, oh yeah, it's a tax benefit to be married, but not so much anymore. It's just another way of them to, grab your assets in one way or another. It's absolutely astounding the way that they
grab your
get around to that.
assets?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and some say even that that's actually where they assume the authority to take your children via CPS. I don't know how real that is, but supposedly when you get your marriage license, you're basically giving the government the right to third party say in your marriage, including children produced within. And so when these people come and take people's children because of CPS complaints or whatever, that it would require some type of agreement. Then you get into the birth certificate. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like I'm not interested in any of that. We're gonna do an affidavit of marriage, man. I'm married in the sight of the Creator. You know, like the Creator made us, and He made men and women, and He made marriage, and He made children to come from those. And so I don't see why I would need like the super corrupt beast system government to tell me it's okay. So yeah, we're kind of doing it real chill, low key, and then we're having everyone hang out a couple days later because we're keeping the marriage like super, super small, you know.
Yeah, oh, that's cool. Okay, well, I hope everything goes well for you, and you know, everything works out really well for you. That'll be cool. And I wish I could make it down there, but I don't know. It's kind of a long trip for, you know, kind of a one-day affair. But hopefully you'll be able to make it up to Flattoberfest this year, or whatever month we decide to have it. But I think it's going to be in October. Yes.
Yeah, usually I think so. But yeah, dude, yeah, no big deal. I don't expect people to come from all around. You know, I mean, it's just a day to hang out, and if you're in the area, you know.
Right. Yeah, I understand. So that's cool. So, all right, cool. Well, let's get on with the show then. One of the things that Jeran mentioned
Bob,
that I'm
can
sorry.
you hear me?
Oh, hey, David, I
This
didn't even
is-
notice you were in here.
I just wanted to say that the rumors of my death have been slightly over-exaggerated. I'm not dead.
Prove you're not a
How
clone.
are you telling us this from beyond the grave? I don't get it.
Yeah, get on camera right now and show your belly button to prove you're not a clone.
Dave, can we start doing the Abraham Hicks thing? All
Say that
summit-
again?
Can we start doing the Abraham Hicks thing, and you can manifest into my reality, and it'll be great. This is fantastic. We can run with
That would be a lot of fun. I could do that. Yes.
there's Baller Dave, and there's From Beyond Dave.
And I just want to say, because I've been getting a lot of messages, a lot of criticism for when I was on that morning show. I had like 6 minutes, and they tried to derail the conversation because I was crushing their flat Earth mockery. And they said, "What do you think about COVID?" And I had an option, like, how far do I want to go? And I said, I got sick, I had it, I got better, I didn't die, and moved on. Now, if I started going, I had it, what they call COVID, that opens up a whole nother conversation. So I just blew by it. Anyone that thinks that I believe the thing that they call COVID hasn't ever listened to me ever. So that's all I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just people that would never have the balls to go in there, much less understand the pressure that comes with it. You know, it is what it is, bro. Doers do, talkers talk.
There you go.
Hey,
all right, guys.
Okay.
Jared, you want to say something before I go?
Nope, I said haters hate.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
I
All
was
right,
going
guys,
to
good
say,
show.
stole the words right out of my
Forward to
mouth. Haters gonna hate.
Haters
All
gonna
right.
hate.
Well, thanks, David. We'll let the world know that you're alive and well. That's nuts. Hey, that's a pretty good impression to do, David, there, Jeran.
Thank you. I know.
Not bad at all.
You started speaking, all the lights in my house were flickering. It's kind of weird. You can't say that stuff though. Somebody will pick it up and think I'm being serious.
Yeah, no doubt.
So-
All right. So, did you watch this Jay Tolan video, Jeran? The one that he just put out?
Yeah, I was about halfway through when we started this, so I haven't seen the end. But I just like watching his videos. He does such a good job.
He does. But you know, he says some stuff that sometimes really concerns me, and you know, I don't exactly know where he's coming from all the time. I mean, he truly does believe the Earth is flat, but you know, he's made some remarks, you know, both on his videos and, you know, like even in the FE Core chat, you know, when he was writing Robert Scott emails back and forth, he said something in one of those emails that just floored me. And it's just like,
what?
Where? Well, he said that the Earth was flat, but that he thought it was rotating. And it's like, what? And I've wanted to talk to him about that for quite some time, because it just seems like sometimes he'll go down the road one way, that, you know, just like his last video that he put out, he was talking about, you know, satellites and stuff. Now, whether or not he's going to change that up to, you know, balloon satellites, or if he thinks that there's, you know, really something like that going on, I mean, that's totally against the cosmology.
I agree too. But James Tolan, James True was on my show last night, And he was talking too about the fact of if they do have this kind of toroidal system and it's above us, couldn't something be caught up electromagnetically or through electric tethering? Couldn't something be caught up in would be a circular pattern over the top of the flat Earth? I mean, I can't say that couldn't happen.
I think it absolutely does happen. I mean, where else is the star rotation coming from?
Right. So I mean, couldn't satellites be somehow? I mean, if they're remotely ahead of us in technology, couldn't they suspend things up there?
I think it's entirely possible. If it's a physical structure, like it's described in the Bible, then yeah, you should be able to attach anything to it, right? Theoretically, glue it to it, bolt it, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think what he means is more like electromagnetically sort of levitating up there, right? Like,
why would you not be able to? I don't understand how you would. If someone can tell me how you wouldn't be able to, we could start there. But if you if you just had a magnetic field, then you could obviously mediate pressure accordingly. I don't. To think the government doesn't have technology that does that is very naive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know what would happen, but let's say that we have a dome, and let's say that we know helium rises. So if you just had a ton of helium at the top of this dome, what would happen? So if you kind of tried to get up as high as you could, would you hit a barrier that you would be blocked by the helium even before you got to the dome itself?
No, I
don't think the helium would affect you at all. Like you would have pressure mediation. All you would need is a magnet in a saucer. Dun dun dun. Literally, just a magnet in the middle of a saucer, and you'd be able to go up to any until you got to physical impedance. Hydrogen certainly wouldn't cause that. I don't know what's up there, but yeah, you could get up there to levitate easily. I would assume there are layers in which levitation is more attainable, right? And so the higher you get, the more you manage levitation.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say because
guesswork.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the helium would have to be at the very top, and especially, if you look at the way that so-called gravity is functioning, in our model, and basically it is more along the lines of the reason that the reason that hydrogen and helium are the lightest of the gases, right? The noble gases has a lot to do with their electrical structure. You have one that has two electrons and the other one has one electron. So they have a very, very, very small charge to them. And that is presented with a very low amount of resistance from the downflowing electrical current flow. Okay. So that actually makes sense. When you look at it that way. And then of course, if you took away all air or anything that could be ionized, because remember, if you don't have something to ionize, then you can't put a charge potential on anything, contrary to some beliefs that have been completely misrepresented, from, 100 years ago. But, yeah, so, I mean, I think there's something definitely physical up there. Obviously we can bounce lasers off of it. We have sprites discharging up to it. There's definitely something there. And so, I can't imagine that they wouldn't be able to attach stuff to it. But then my mind goes back to that one guy that was corresponding with David Weiss, the supposed guy that was doing the engineering up there, and said, no, they really don't want us messing around up there or figuring out what's going on up there, which also makes sense to me. So I don't know.
Well, isn't it possible that there are semi-permeable layers that lead up to the ultimate physical impedance? I don't, I actually see that to be hyperlogical, that there would be like a layering of density. I don't even know if they would have to attach anything anywhere. I like, for me, dude, bumblebees proved they could do it. I don't know why they wouldn't do it. It would make them incompetent.
What do you mean bumblebees?
Yeah, I
could do what?
Yeah, bumblebees just create this like resonance shield around them where like crosswinds don't affect them. Like it would be the same thing. You wouldn't be affected by any of the relative density around you. You would create a pressure mediation bubble.
Yeah, it's true. And it's interesting when you listen to a bumblebee, and you listen to a jet engine when it's in cruise mode, and they are putting out about the same frequency, that low wah type of tone. And I just found that very interesting, because that's what, who's Victor Schauberger and then the other Victor, those two guys are always talking about, is these resonant tones that would essentially kind of counteract gravity type things. Bees use it, scarab beetles use it, and a variety of other animals in the animal kingdom use it. It's interesting that either resonant sounds or charge, and that's how they seem to be able to overcome it. So, I would say that it would be strange if you couldn't actually go up and attach something to the top of the dome, but I don't know. It seems like when something goes up there and hits something, though, it almost acts like it's going into some water or something.
Right. So what if that was a semi-permeable layer, and then the density increases as you continue to go up?
Yeah, it's a
So
possibility.
like an inversion at some point. So like you take say a glass container and you fill it with water and oil and vinegar and different fluids, and you just leave it to rest. It's naturally going to come to equilibrium with layers, right? So you'll have like the oil on the bottom, and then the water, then the vinegar, and it naturally does that, right? It finds its place of equilibrium based on its density. I think that something similar is probably happening in the upper layers. And I've also postulated that there may be at some point a density inversion, where at some point you get to a certain level and things start becoming more and more dense with altitude. I don't know. I mean, it's possible.
Well, yeah, you remember that one guy, God, I always forget his name. He's the plasma fields guy. What you remember who that guy is, right? The plasma fields guy. But anyway, I'm sorry?
Brian Austin Lambert, or no, you're talking about somebody else?
No, it's the other guy. Oh gosh, what's his name? Anyway, okay. When he has his magnetic bowls up there, right? He shows a construct which looks a lot like CERN, but he calls this one area in the smaller part of the upper ring, and he calls that the flip ring area, where it's like a 0G type of area, and you should be able to actually suspend things up in that area, because we can do it down here, right? But still, that's based on something magnetic, and I tend to think that the 0G again is coming more from a lack of charge potential than magnetic potential, and there's a huge difference. And by the way, Ken Wheeler's really been elaborating on that a lot lately. It's amazing. So yeah, we have a lot to talk about with Ken Wheeler. I've got there's a lot of new material he's come out with, so it's pretty cool. But anyway, we're getting off subject here.
That's right. We do well.
Yeah,
what do you do? Helium-3. I mean, in liquid helium, the superfluid. Couldn't that be something that's up there as well? Because superfluids like helium climb walls and go upwards.
Yeah.
So I'm just it's a dome, then it would climb that wall and be like a ocean above us of helium-3. Anyway.
Yep.
Well, it's like the standard explanation. Conventional science is going to say, like, in terms of the vinaigrette, right? The different layers of fluids finding different equilibrium based on their density. Well, okay, so they're going to say it has to do with like its weight or its density. But what if it's what if it's something else? What if it has to do with its like its vibrational state rather than its physical density? This is something that I've thought a lot about, because we know that gravity isn't what they told us it is, right? It's something else entirely. And so there has to be other explanations for these things, I think.
Well, what's the difference in vibrational state and density?
Quite a bit, actually.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, I want to know,
because
the part that flat earthers always get hiccuped on is whenever someone says, "Okay, yeah, but why do things have density?" It's intrinsically, the compactness of matter is intrinsically tied to its vibrational state. So when people ask them that, they don't have a question, and then that confirms their bias that flat earthers are ignorant of the entirety of the phenomena or whatever, right? I mean, they're wrong for sure, but to be fair, yeah, what does cause density? The compactness of matter. The surface area doesn't change, so what changes it?
And it would also stand to reason that the higher the vibration, the more density, the more dense the material would be as well.
Exactly. So like
let's say if you have a centimeter cube of solid steel, right? It's going to weigh more than a centimeter cube of, like, say, balsa wood or cork wood or something. Now, is there more stuff in there? No, it's the same amount of stuff. But I just don't think that, because I don't subscribe to the whole atomic model of, science. I don't subscribe to that anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore. And I just think that there's probably something simple, but something that all of science has overlooked because they've been sort of stuck in that paradigm of, spinning ball Earth and atomic theory to explain everything.
That's kind of like apples.
But I think it's something entirely different.
Yeah, that's kind of like apples and oranges, though, because you can't say, well, I've got a gram of steel and a gram of balsa wood, because obviously the steel is much denser. And, how exactly that manifests, it would manifest in a higher vibration because energetically there would have to be more energy, especially if there's even any possibility that E equals mc squared is correct, right? Then it would take that higher amount of vibrational energy to have a higher density. Now, as far as what they call density, if you remember the show that we did a long time ago called Sunday Mass, when we were talking about, well, what exactly is density, right? Or what exactly is mass? I'm sorry, not density. And it's like, they don't really know. As far as I'm concerned, and as far as any science that's done here on Earth is concerned, I don't care what they say, but the reality is it comes down to weight, right? Now you can say that, you have 16-ounce gold bar that weighs 1 pound here on Earth, and if you take it to the moon, then it's going to weigh, like 3 or 4 ounces or something like that, 1/6 of it. But, since nobody's ever been to the moon, they don't know that. That's all nonsense. And people have simply got to stop subscribing to that because nobody's ever been to the moon. Nobody knows that that's even possible. In fact, I would bet the farm that it's not possible. And so, we find ourselves getting caught up in the heliocentric model of things, right? Whoa, yeah, it's going to be a lot less weight on the moon. It's like, really? How do you know that? Can you even go to the moon? From what we can tell, we can't even go to the moon. And even NASA tells us to this day that we can't leave low Earth orbit. And, anybody that and I'm sorry, if you really honestly believe that we went to the moon in 1969, you're an idiot.
Yeah, you probably have AIDS.
Right.
But Bob, what I was wondering is, when you say that the vibrational frequency being proportionate to the density, we'll say, like, in addition, if Tesla's right when he says that, well, infinitesimal worlds of prodigious velocity is what creates matter, then like the compactness of the motion would cause the density too. You see what I'm saying? Like infinitesimal prodigious worlds of velocity just means really, really small worlds of velocity. So like the smaller it is, the more compact the motion is, the more dense the matter that manifests would be.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm saying is, like, so let's say you could let's say you take a centimeter cube of balsa wood and hit it with hit it with a wave of vibration, right, of the right frequency, and alter its state into that something similar of a centimeter cube of steel. I mean, is something like that even possible? I don't know, maybe. But when you look at how the builders of the ancient monolithic and like say the pyramids and stuff, apparently they had some kind of way to hit matter that's super, heavy and super dense, like limestone or whatever, and make it so that you can just, manipulate it and lift it up and push it into place and build things with it. So I don't know, man.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Well, if you hit something with a certain frequency, could you change the matter's density?
Theoretically,
I think you could.
Yeah, you could change the matter's density until it disintegrates, actually.
That's right. So then it would be naive to say that the density isn't relative to the vibration, right? Because we can actually, demonstrate that. We can actually manipulate the vibration and change the structure, i.e. the density of the matter.
Yep. Just like the old opera singer in the wine, the wine glass. That's a very, very good demonstration. And the reason that it does that is because when the opera singer hits that resonant tone, essentially what's happening is the peak of the sine wave from the singer's voice is completely in phase with the maximum expansion and contraction of the glass itself. So on the positive side, you have maximum extraction, maximum expansion, right, along with that corresponds with the top side of the sinusoidal wave, and then maximum contraction would correspond with the lower side of the sinusoidal wave. And when you build upon that, then basically you hit the condition of resonance, and resonance gives you then a maximum power transfer, which then shatters the glass, right? So so to be able to levitate things by that technique, absolutely, I think you can do it. I think that's what what's his name did with the Coral Castle, and probably a lot of the structures in Egypt were built that way. But who knows?
Yeah, I can't disagree. It's clear that they understood the importance of vibrations and cymatic patterns so much more than we do. Even exemplified in their architecture.
About the bass that you play in a car, and then have you ever seen it when they slow motion the windows?
Yep.
That they actually turn into like jelly.
Yep.
And move. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's really cool. There's a lot they don't teach us about anything. There's so many cool things that they can do. And, a lot of weird things like that happen during like tornadoes and hurricanes, where there'll be all these resonant frequencies going on, and things actually become embedded in other matter, right? Like we've seen after a hurricane, we've seen like silverware or an axe completely embedded inside of a tree, and with no point of entry, it's just there, right? How the hell did that happen? But that's something that's actually quite a common occurrence. So there's a whole nother science there that, we're not even being taught about, but it never doesn't change the fact that it happens, and it happens a lot because it's documented a lot. There's all kinds of pictures and stuff on the internet you can see where, high energy storms will cause things like that to happen. But do they ever teach us about that? No.
Bob, here's something in the chat here that's pretty cool. That's the bass that you can do with the, what happens to a car windshield. I wouldn't play with sound. Just go to like 43 seconds and look what's happened to this windshield. It's insane.
Okay, let's see. Turn that off. And 43 seconds.
So where did I lose your Skype? There it goes.
Okay. Oh my God, that's incredible. Yeah, and see the maximum swing. If that's hitting the positive, it's resonating with the positive side of the bass, the sinusoidal note, and the negative swing is resonant with the negative side. And if you increase that amplitude just a little bit more, it's going to shatter.
I think it does shatter here, but this is things that we can't even fathom because we know of glass as being hard.
Yeah.
Not bent. So you're looking at that like, well, what is that, plexiglass? It's like, no, that's a glass windshield. It just so happens that it's playing the piece. It's such a. I thought that is this the one that it shatters, or maybe it's a different one. Yeah, it's oh no, it cracks at about. Let's see where are we at here. Where it cracks. About 2 minutes, I guess, or so.
So is there a certain frequency you could hit a lump of lead with and turn it into a lump of gold, right? So we're talking like the Philosopher's Stone type of application of this, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but you never know. You never know. There's so much that we don't know about so many of the elements, like Mercury. I think Mercury is one of those things that has amazing mysteries, surrounding it.
Or red mercury. I keep hearing that. I don't know if any of that's true. I can't fathom that there's something that can't be seen in a mirror. It doesn't register with my brain correctly, but I'll have to see it to believe
No,
it.
you can't. You can't see it in the mirror. I've seen the videos of it. It's for real.
Yeah, I've seen them too.
I haven't seen it in person.
Yeah,
but
gotta see it.
I believe that it's true.
Yeah, I see too many people faking things now with camera stuff. It's just too easy. Oh, there it goes. Now it's shattering.
Yeah.
But that, and then also, that's why I think helium-3 or liquid helium, the superfluid, there's something to it. Because if you look it up on YouTube, there's like one experiment that they always show. It's the black and white. You've seen it, right? With the helium going up the walls. Like, why would there be no other experiments around that? So there's something to it that they don't want people to see, or else people would be doing experiments today with it and showing things about it, but nobody touches it for some reason.
I don't know.
That's crazy you brought up mercury, bro. I recently saw archaeologists discover large quantities of liquid mercury beneath the pyramid of the feathered serpent, the third largest pyramid in the ancient ruined city of, don't want to try to pronounce it, in Mexico. I mean,
Really?
they have no idea why the liquid mercury was present or what the use the ancients might have had for it was, right? So,
But like Chichen Itza?
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
used in transmitting electrical signals, and I think that they were transmitting more than like radio waves, but actual like energy, like transmitting electrical charges over probably vast distances.
Teotihuacan or something like that.
Teotihuacan.
Yeah, there you go.
Teotihuacan.
There you go.
Teotihuacan, yes. Yeah, that's crazy. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, kinetics is a very interesting field. It really is. But, again, the way that our educational system is set up, anything that could possibly ever lead to, the development of free energy is never even taught. That's why they've never taught us anything, virtually nothing about magnetic fields, right? Because all of it is based around, magnetic fields, the ether, the electricity. They won't even acknowledge that, they'll say, well, electricity exists, but they don't exactly define what it was. And I always thought that was interesting because they'll say, well, we don't know exactly what it is, other than a current flow of electrons. And then they go back to this, this base model of the proton, the neutron, and the electron, and, like they're little bitty particles, and they're just not. That's one thing I've become totally convinced of, is that, the quantum physics is completely wrong in every single way, in that nothing breaks down to these little bitty teeny tiny parts. Everything is about field manipulation and cymatic development, and until the world really, realizes that, I think that we're going to be technologically stalled for a long, long time.
Well, I mean, look at it, though. They've got little heliocentric models as the smallest parts of everything, right? I mean, because that's what an atom essentially looks like. It's like a sun with little planets orbiting it, right? Being the electrons.
So they say, yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's what they say. I don't believe in any of that either. Of course, that's what I grew up believing in, was the whole atomic sort of model. But the more you look at it, the more that I've realized that it's just another spinning ball Earth, only on the micro level, right?
Yep. Yeah, and it's all been, just completely redirected into something that's complete nonsense. Like Einstein and relativity. I mean, relativity, when you think about relativity, it is so stupid. I mean, I can't even think of the words to describe it. It is just so dumb. All it is doing is stating the obvious of, well, with respect to this is moving, but with respect to this, it isn't moving. It's like, well, duh, but that doesn't mean that, it's kind of like if you ask a ball earther. I think somebody asked MC Toon one time, maybe it was you, Austin, that said, asked him if the sun moved, right? And, or was it Red's Rhetoric? Anyway, and
Rhetoric and Antonio Subarez.
Yeah, and he kept saying, with respect to what? And I would have said, with respect to where it was 5 minutes ago or a minute ago,
or like a motionless point in space, a fixed point in space. Right.
They say there is no fixed point in space. They believe in magic. The space doesn't have fixed points, so they don't even.
Well, but it could hypothetically it could, and so relative to that, I know exactly what y'all are talking about too with Antonio.
Yeah.
But relative to that, relative to a fixed point in space, even if it's hypothetical,
right. They can't bring themselves to say that.
Thing is,
it has to stay still in our solar system.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine what it would be like to stand still? Like things would be flying past you at millions of miles an hour in all directions, right? If you were standing still, right?
Yeah. And yet, and then they'll come up with these stupid examples like, well, if you had two guys and one guy takes off at the speed of light and he goes, away from the one guy and then flies back at the speed of light, then you find out that he won't age. Well, what about if you turn that around, right? To the guy that's watching the guy go away, from his point of view, he's separating from the other guy at the speed of light. So, I mean, stuff like that is so blatantly obvious. It's stupid. And yet they will have you believe that it actually makes some sort of a physical change. It's kind of like the Lorentz contraction, right? or gravity fields. You know, they talk about gravity fields. What are you talking about? Gravity field? Field of what? And what exactly does this field do? They can't define what the field is. They don't know what the field is. You know, what is gravity? What characteristics does it have? Well, how do you measure it? Well, we measure it by looking at laser interferometers and seeing if things shrink. Really? That's cool. Now, what mechanism do we know of? Do we have like a little shrinking space ray or something that causes things to shrink? How do we know that? Where is the precedent for things like that? They have absolutely no precedent for anything like that. And yet they will sit there and tell you that, you know, looking at things change size, which has never been witnessed, so they just make it up, tells you all about the gravitational field, which they don't even know what a field is. I mean, it's just unbelievable the way they have got people bamboozled to the nth degree, and people, because they so badly want to, you know, think that they're intellectual, that, you know, they'll sit there and parrot it back, and they won't even realize what the hell they're saying. It's just, it makes me crazy. It really does.
Well, they would have no idea that the people that use the word gravitational field can't even properly define field. Like when you told them that the highest levels of academia don't have an agreed upon definition of field, they would just automatically assume that you're wrong. You know, like that they don't understand the intricacies of anything that they read. So
Exactly.
That's really the problem. Yeah.
Because Einstein said it well. Einstein, he's a fuzzy-haired crackpot, so he had to be right? Because he was elevated to, you know, the rank of deity essentially, and, you know, as far as physics. And yeah, it's insane. It really is. But and that is what we have come to. And Nikola Tesla was 100% right when he said, you know, science now is nothing but more than, you know, mathematical equations which wander off, you know, basically into the twilight zone. And none of it is provable. None of it is demonstrable. None of it is provable. None of it is observable. And yet they will tell you that it's absolutely real and that you're insane if you think that it isn't. It's like,
yeah,
wow.
he said some of the people that propose these mathematical constructs, even some of them are brilliant men, but they're metaphysicists rather than scientists.
Yeah. Exactly.
So the other day, someone was asking me, you know, how can you deny nuclear bombs and how can you deny nuclear meltdown? Like, look at Chernobyl. And, you know, my point is with that is that first of all, they're two entirely different things. Nuclear bombs are supposedly the splitting of these little solar systems, like these little atoms, right? Splitting those highly volatile specific types of atoms that then cause a chain reaction to split other atoms, which, you know, continues on a chain reaction into ultimately a nuclear bomb. That's what it hypothetically, theoretically is in a nutshell. Now, nuclear energy, that's a misnomer. So what that is taking a radioactive isotope like enriched uranium and encasing it in a real small confined area and constricting that area smaller and smaller. It generates heat. You use that heat to essentially power circuits. It's like this whole thing was created as a deception to not only just to bilk us for our money, you know, like on power bills and things like that, but also to trick us into believing that they can split these little atoms. But anyway, nuclear energy is like steam power. It's a misnomer. It has nothing to do with nuclear anything. Nuclear bombs are a hoax. They don't exist. It's propaganda. But the two things are completely, hypothetically, unrelated. It's not the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, by the way,
Does that make sense?
Somebody did a hit piece on me last week when I made the statement that I simply did not believe that nukes were real. And, you know, I gave my reasons why. And, you know, and they're pretty easy to check up on. You know what I mean? I mean, the famous picture of the Enola Gay with the window over the starboard left, starboard port, it's over the starboard wing, showing the mushroom cloud. It doesn't exist. It's not there. And second of all, you know, we're talking about atomic bombs that supposedly have a half-life of, you know, so many thousands of years, right? And in theory that, you know, places like Chernobyl or any place that's ever had any high high intensity radioactivity theoretically should not even be, habitable for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And yet they're thriving and people live there today. So I'm crazy because I don't believe in atomic bombs. And then also when you look at the evidence of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it is so blatantly obvious they were firebombed. It's like people you can be looking right at it. And if you have a white lab coat on, you could tell them that aliens did it and people would believe it.
Well, the biggest scam, I think, is that they've convinced all people that energy is this thing that we have to create, when really it's something that's everywhere for free. We just have to harness it, and they know that, and they've hid that. It's crazy because like we still have to pay a power bill, even though I don't know. It's just beyond me. And then again, I mean, we still get fluoride in our water, and people are aware of that and like really don't want it.
Oh yeah.
So,
well,
like, how do we take this thing back?
I know, and that's the other thing. It's funny, fluoride is like one of the main ingredients in rat poison, which is one of the main ingredients in what's the drug they give you for mood enhancement? Not Thorazine, but
lithium.
Lithium, yeah. It's like it's like if people had any idea that well that's okay in small quantities, it's like I don't think so, and I mean, that's the amazing thing is they'll tell you exactly what it is, what it does, what it's used for. And they say, here you go, take a couple of these. That'll fix you right up. And they expect you to think your world's just going to be okay. Crazy. Anyway, wow, we're kind of all over the place today. But all right, so let's get back to Jay Tolan's video that he made. And in this video, he decided that he was going to do a bunch of different parallax measurements to figure out where the sun is. And several people have already done this, going all the way back to Robotham and stuff. I think Robotham came up with a distance of 3,900 or 4,000 miles, something like that. He said his average was 4,199 miles, as you can see here. The low side of it is 3,807. The high side, 4,681. So all of those, there's like an 800-mile variance there, but that is light years away from 93 million miles away, right? And this is just doing standard triangulation. Well, and they seem to think that, the ballers seem to think that this is okay. And if they didn't, we've all seen this, right? This is the one where this video here is the one where Red's Rhetoric does the triangulation between his house and his friend Jade's house, Turkey Cat in Florida. And I guess he's in California or vice versa, whatever. And they triangulate it out so that, using that technique, that the moon comes out to be exactly 224,573.1 miles from his front door, right? And, this is Red Rhetoric, right? So it's got to be gospel. And so this type of triangulation is valid, but doing it on the sun is not valid. Now, as flat earthers, we understand that there's going to be a large discrepancy in accuracy because of refraction. But isn't it amazing that refraction didn't seem to have, much of a difference at all in the moon distance triangulation of 224,000. I mean, that's pretty much right there exactly in the zone where mainstream science tells us where it is. So what's the difference, guys? What's the difference? Why is one valid and the other not? A good question, right?
Well, I would say that the moon is obviously local. It's demonstrably local. And any sort of hypothetical triangulation on something that we're using assumptions based on a model that you think is real but isn't, then it's just numbers that support your ability to do math but have nothing to do with reality.
Yeah. Well, and I would say that the sun is demonstrably local too. Right. Again, because the whole idea, and again, the whole 93 million miles thing is ridiculous. When you look at that, I don't even think, even if the sun really was 865,000 miles in diameter, at 93 million miles, I think it would be lucky even if it made it here at a half a degree. And I'm sure that mathematically it all checks out somewhere. But as you guys saw in my presentation in Dallas, that you can't even go 2/3 of a light day with our sun before it is completely invisible by a few orders of magnitude on its angular size. And because of the inverse square law, going down every time you double the distance, you decrease your magnitude by 4 times, right? So you have two factors at play here. One is the factor of angular size, and whenever you double the distance, your angular size halves, right? Okay, so it takes about a half a light day for that to drop below our maximum, angular acuity, right, of our eye. And then you have the brightness of the sun, which is going down at an exponentially higher rate than that, because every time you double your distance, your intensity, light intensity, goes down 4 times, right? So when you look at it that way, and you see that it's very obvious that our sun is no bigger than any other star by the time you get not even a light day, out to the edge of our solar system, but theoretically it should be completely invisible. So the idea that it's even hitting planets like Jupiter or Saturn and reflecting back the light that it is preposterous, right? And so even though that sounds insane, they still will go ahead and say, oh yeah, but it's okay because, we can see Polaris and it's 450 times, 450 light years away and stuff like that, right? It's crazy. Nothing they do makes any sense. And yet they claim all of their math adds up, and it doesn't. And, Danny Faulkner.
Well, Polaris is a funny one because if you, if you're standing at the equator, right, it's going to be about 0 degrees in the horizon, Polaris. If you're at 15 degrees north, it's going to be about 15 degrees above the horizon, give or take. So Polaris is like an indicator of your degree of latitude, right, in the north. Well, if you use that to triangulate on Polaris, so if you're one observation of Polaris in the morning, one observation of Polaris in the evening, then you now have hypothetically the ball Earth's radius, right, as your baseline for the triangle. Do you see what I'm saying? Uh-huh. And so, but if you triangulate it out, Polaris is only I think it's 150,000 miles away, according to that. And you can put it in AutoCAD and do right down to the inch, and it's nowhere near as far as they say it's supposed to be, and that would be really accurate triangulation too. And that's according to according to a ball Earth sort of model. And it just doesn't add up. There's for so many reasons Polaris doesn't add up.
Yeah, well, none of them do really. And Polaris is one of the main stars. I forgot what they call it, but it's one of their main reference stars essentially. And that doesn't add up. And by the way, guys, when you triangulate either the sun or the moon, the only difference between triangulating off of a flat Earth and triangulating off of a ball Earth is the parallax figure. Well, what is that parallax figure? That parallax figure is the amount of curvature that takes place, allegedly, right? Which we can't measure. So we have to go to Google to tell us what it is, or some imaginary source. We figure that in, and when we put in that imaginary figure, then all of a sudden we get our correct figure, like we have right here, of 224,000 supposedly miles to the moon, right? Which also is absurd because it doesn't look anything like that, like that far away. In fact, it looks like it's literally right on top of us, So it's just amazing. The whole ball Earth model is telling you one thing, and the evidence supporting something else completely. And then what they do is they straw man all of your arguments. Where are their tests? Where are their tests? Where are their tests for motion? Where are their tests for size? How do they know what the brightness is of Polaris? How do they know what the size is of Polaris? And dude, you guys, I'm going to show you something in Danny Faulkner's video with MC Toon today. He actually makes it look like Polaris is, taking off and going across the sky, right? And calling flat earthers crazy, saying, "Oh yeah, no, it's definitely, we're saying that it doesn't really move much. It moves a little bit, right? We know this, but the way he's got this thing set up, it looks like it's taking off and going across the sky. You cannot be any more dishonest than these guys. It's just unbelievable.
What, Polaris?
Polaris, yeah.
Hello, guys.
Wow.
Hey, you're here.
How you doing? Sorry for my delay. It's a nice topic. By the way, you know that in the Gleason's book, he talks about of the movement of Polaris. I don't know if you are aware about that.
Which book? I've read
Gleason's. Let me find out. But he makes. And I have a friend in Spanish who is a flat earther, and he put the measurements of 1 degrees in the 80s, 71 to our days, and Gleason saw the Polaris from Buffalo City, 1 degrees to the east of his location, and well. Then, you know, during the show, if you allow me, I can share that textbook and what he said about the movement of Polaris and blah blah blah, but not due to the rotation of the Earth, of course, but most to the precession of the stars itself, you know, like a group. But at least it's something to take into account.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, let me see if I can find that real quick. I think it's right in this area. Let me play it. And by the way, this is for fair use, for criticism and pointing out the utter bullshit that, you know, MC Toon and Faulkner are capable of. Let's see if I can find it real quick.
We may want to show it a couple of times. It isn't very long.
For people that are interested, I did put it in chat.
All
right. And here we go. Here is they're seeing it now. You're not seeing it, but they are.
Okay. And you'll notice that there's the brightest star is up near the top left a little bit. That's Polaris. And you'll notice it's not stationary. When it runs, just rerun it again. Keep doing that until I say otherwise. And you can see that all the stars, including Polaris, are moving around a point that's...
Now, are you guys believing that? Do you believe that Polaris really went from here all the way over to here, unless he's got that thing magnified all the way right up on top of it?
Yeah, it must be zoomed in really far. Yeah, I mean, Polaris goes around in a circle that's like practically like you can't see it with the naked eye. You have to look at it over time.
No, it fits in a little bitty hole that you can look through it at the Georgia Guidestones, right? And Austin, you took pictures of this, right?
Right.
But this is over the top. I'm sorry?
I think this is stupid.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on. I feel like I'm losing brain cells.
If you fix a telescope anywhere in the northern hemisphere, fix a telescope on Polaris and leave it there, it'll still be focused on Polaris tomorrow and the next day and a week later and a year later and 10 years after that.
Yes.
All right. So to clarify, he's saying he took this observation.
I'm not sure where he got it from. I think so, but yeah, let's just play it again. Watch it. It's got to be incredibly zoomed in. And the reason for that, obviously, is so that it makes Polaris look like it's traveling way, way, way further than it would, right? Because we all know that if we put our telescopes on Polaris, I mean, it really doesn't move at all. I mean, maybe an RCH, right? Hardly anything at all. And when you're looking at this, they are purposely trying to give you the impression that Polaris is taking off and going across the sky. And then right when it gets to the end of that little journey, they put up this little advertisement or whatever. It's like, okay, well, what happens after that, MC Toon? What happens after that, Faulkner? It's like, you guys are freaking liars. You are liars. You're obfuscators.
Yeah,
you are beyond
That's
belief.
crazy.
Unreal. So let's watch it again.
All right, and here we go. Here is they're seeing it now. You're not seeing it, but they are.
Okay.
Right there.
And you'll notice that there's the brightest star is up near the top left a little bit. That's Polaris. And you'll notice it's not stationary. When it runs, just rerun it again. Keep doing that until I say otherwise. And you can see that all the stars, including Polaris, are moving around a point.
And did you see it jump? It jumped twice.
I'm not sure if that's really Polaris because there's other stars towards the center of the screen that aren't hardly moving at all.
I'm not sure it is
wrong
either.
about that being Polaris.
I think they're
Dude, it's
straight
almost
up lying.
guaranteed not. It's yeah, of course they're lying, dude. That's why I'm like, well, where does this come from? Who did this? What do you? This is stupid, bro. I don't even understand it. There are stars here that aren't moving as much as that one, and we know it moves less than any other star, so it's automatically fake.
I think Polaris is like at the center of the screen, to tell you the truth, like down one, to the right. Like,
my God, that is so dishonest. You guys, seriously, you should be ashamed of yourself. You totally should be ashamed of yourself, Faulkner, and you too, Toon. But we know you're a shill. Let's just play it one more time, and then you'll hear it out, and you can see it.
Those fucking idiots.
Oh my God, it just infuriates me. Talk about a straw man and utter bullshit. This is just straight up falsities. Unreal. All right, let's go.
The axis of the Earth is pointing above the Earth through the North Pole. There's also a south celestial pole in the other direction, which we can't see here in the northern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere they can, but not here. Have you got it prepped and ready to go?
I almost do.
All right. We may want to show it a couple of times. It isn't very long.
For people that are interested, I did put it in chat.
All right.
So they can. All right. They can watch it on their own.
Okay.
Please.
So you can't show it on the channel?
No, I'm about to. Just a second.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Here is they're seeing it now. You're not seeing it, but they are.
Okay. And you'll notice that there's the brightest star is up near the top left a little bit. That's Polaris. And you'll notice it's not stationary. When it runs, just rerun it again. Keep doing that until I say otherwise. And you can see that all the stars, including Polaris, are moving around a point that's a little below center of the field of view there. And this is because Polaris is about 3/4 of a degree away from the North Celestial Pole. And this is something, Mike, that anybody can check for themselves. Don't trust me. Go out and check.
I don't trust you, Danny.
The flat earthers like to talk about the zetetic philosophy, checking what you can for yourself. So I would suggest you go out and find Polaris if you can find it in the sky, and you set a telescope up. Doesn't have to be a very big, powerful telescope, and point it at Polaris and get it focused. That's important, and get it centered.
You also got to ask yourself, why didn't they time lapse this to see a nice, circular pattern of stars? Because if you watch this and all the other stars, they're just going to make all these squiggly lines all over the place. I don't think they'll make a circle. Do you guys?
Nah, man. I did a time lapse a couple days ago. This is not reality. This is dumb. What a coincidence, though, that Polaris is the brightest star, because normally when you do actually document the sky, it's not.
No, Sirius is. But yeah.
And use a moderate power eyepiece. You don't need really high, but I would avoid the lower power eyepieces. Get it centered, and then walk away from the telescope. Go in the house and spend a couple hours. Come back outside, and you will find the Polaris is no longer centered. It will actually move over.
All the stars are jumping. They're literally jumping from one position to another. So not only...
Danny, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, sorry. Well, like Danny, I'm curious. When I go to Georgia Guidestones and I look and see Polaris, and then 3 hours later I walk right back to Georgia Guidestones hole where Polaris is, why does it always just stay right there in the center of the hole every day, all day, for hours
for the last 50 years?
What a joke.
Yeah. And again, and if it's going around in circles like that and not actually precessing, then how in the world do we ever come up with a new North Star? With Thuban, Vega, whatever, there is no indication whatsoever of anything ever coming from or heading to either one of those stars. Everything is cyclical. It keeps resetting to the exact same position, exactly the same position every single year, with no progression, not even an RCH worth of progression towards a new pole star. And why would they call, name it the pole star if they're going to change the name for the pole star to a different pole star every, so many years?
The way that you find Polaris in a time lapse is it's the one that isn't moving. I mean, this is, I don't know what these guys are talking about, but I think that he's thinking that that bright star is a North Star, and it isn't. I can't really see what I'm looking at because I'm looking at a phone, and then it's like the screen's even smaller than the screen on my phone, and we're talking about stars here. So, but I'm pretty sure that he's just way off and talking out his ass.
I think so too. I think
that is not Polaris. I don't think that even is
Yeah.
Polaris at all.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter to them. That doesn't matter to them because all their cheerleaders are going to go, oh, take that, you stupid flat earthers.
Yo, as if
Right,
the
that's all they
Polaris
have.
moving even helps them. Bro, even if Polaris moves and it's got a really, really small circle, it just stays right in the center point that can be used for celestial navigation consistently in the same location forever. It doesn't help you if it moves. We know that it moves. It doesn't move this much. This is fake. If you have to lie, you usually don't have to lie a lot when you're telling the truth. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And if it is,
I'm just wondering, are they lying or are they just really retarded? I mean,
I think it's a little bit of a lot of things.
And they think that
it's a little bit of a lot of things,
see,
John,
they're
because
so sure that we're wrong.
Why does he have to zoom in so tight to
What
it?
I'm saying is,
right? Unless he's trying to.
But what I'm saying
accentuate
is
the trick.
they're so sure that we're wrong that they're willing to pretty much get everything wrong in order to prove it. Like this would be a good example of that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I'm going to play a little bit more of this, because I mean, my God, I don't want to tell. I really don't want to tell people to watch this, other than to be flabbergasted at the amount of straw manning and lying that takes place between these two. I mean, oh my God, how do they look at themselves in the morning?
Yeah, I just want to point out, because I'm sure McToon watches this whenever he's not watching Star Wars.
He said something about you in it too. You and I got honorable mentions, Austin.
I heard, yeah, McToon, you keep playing that till I say otherwise. Danny Faulkner owned you, bro. You keep playing that till I say otherwise. That's what he told him. He's like, okay, yes, sir.
All right, let's play a little bit more of it.
Over the course of a couple hours. As you can see, this was actually 2.5 hours, so it actually moves. Again, people can check this if they have a small telescope. They can check it for themselves. They don't have to believe me or trust me on this. This is something that is quite testable for anybody. Now, when you do the time-lapse videos with a camera, or you do a one long exposure for a half hour or an hour, it looks like the North Star Polaris doesn't move. That's because the field of view is so wide and the small motion it takes doesn't show up. You need some magnification in order to see that. And by the way, there's another point that I want to make here with this video. When you look at it, you can see what a good focus is. Can you see how good the focus is?
Yeah, focus is a challenge sometimes for them.
And what I see many times, flat earthers put out these memes and sometimes videos where they show what stars supposedly really look like. And they use the P900 or P1000 camera. And the first time I saw one of those, I started laughing because I recognized immediately it was a bad focus.
Yeah, but you know what they don't talk about is the rest of the story. Because the very first time that I saw that too, I thought the same thing. It was like it was a bad focus type of deal. And what's actually happening there, and I said at the time, it's like there's something going on with the image processing of the digital cameras that is allowing us to see something that we would not be able to see through an analog type of picture, right? And when I say that, I mean that, and I'm not saying that there isn't any ballooning or whatever is going on, flowering or whatever it's called, when it just blooms out. Chris Van Maitre got a lighter to do that, right? But what I can't seem to figure out, and this doesn't make any sense to me, is that when you look at like Sirius or all these different stars through a P900 or P1000, where the image processing in the camera definitely has a factor in it, you can see a modulated, almost like a sacred geometry modulated pattern in there, right? Now, if it was just something like lens flare or something like that, then you wouldn't be getting the same type of modulated patterns on different cameras on the same stars. So what I'm saying is that you can take a bunch of different digital cameras and they will all show that same oscillating pattern in Sirius. But if you take it to another star, it'll have, or even planet, it'll have a different energetic signature. And this, of course, guys, is, just goes along with the idea that astrology is a far, far better science than astronomy. Astronomy isn't even a science code. So, Faulkner, you have no business even calling yourself a scientist at all. You can't do anything. You've never laid hands on the stars. You can't do anything. But what we do know is that
theoretical physics is an oxymoron, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, astronomy predicts nothing, and he's going to try and make that seem like that's not true here in a bit, but we're going to blast that out. But it's just absolutely
I would just like
amazing.
to point out for the record, Bob, what you just said, they will 100% never respond to, but they will keep on saying flat earthers are so dumb they just have out of focus pictures from the P900. They will never acknowledge the different energy signatures or cymatic patterns of the stars when you actually look at them. They will never acknowledge it. And if they were honestly telling the truth and we were just incompetent, you would have no need to omit crucial aspects of the rebuttal. They're watching this, they will not ever rebut it. It's like, dude, we're talking about the lowest of the low, bro. They don't even allow themselves to intellectually dissect it, much less like verbalize it to others.
Yeah, and they're strawmanning the hell out of it. I mean, you wouldn't believe how many claims he says flat earthers make, and like I said, yeah, flat earthers, everybody does have their own opinion on it. And that's fine, because none of us are saying this is absolutely the way that it is. Now, when I talk about things, I usually present some evidence that backs up what I'm saying. They were making fun of our incoherent dielectric acceleration, but you know what, MC Toon, and you know what, Danny Faulkner, when we model that incoherent dielectric acceleration in between two Gaussian surfaces and put a static voltage on it, we can get it to emulate gravity exactly. And beyond that, if we reverse the polarity on it, we can cause things to go the other direction. Now, what can you do with your gravitational model besides jack? Nothing. That's
again, they'll never, ever rebut that, ever.
Nope, they won't. They'll just laugh at us and say, oh, yeah, you can do this. And by the way, Zack is doing some really cool electrostatic experiments with a Faraday cage. So be looking out for that for Good Times for All. It's going to be pretty cool. But
nice.
Yeah. It's just absolutely amazing that, all they can do is straw man, lie, and never answer any questions. So, whatever. So let's watch a little bit more of this.
As I said, I've been using telescopes. I think I got my first telescope in 1967. So I've got some experience using telescopes. And by the way, when I first started, I didn't know how to get proper focus myself. It takes a little practice. And I think after more than a half century, I would know what a good focus is and what a bad focus is. This came up in a discussion group that you and I are in. I think before you joined the group, this one flat earther was putting up pictures like this. And I think some she had taken herself. And I said, these are just bad focuses. And I started describing what a focus is. And finally she said, well, you've got your focus, I've got mine.
Oh my gosh, it's not an opinion.
And then that's great postmodern thinking, but no, there are only two possibilities. It's in focus or it's not in focus. You can't.
No, there's not only two possibilities. It's either in focus or out of focus, or you're picking up a modulation, a secondary modulation that is actually being processed by the camera. And if that was not true, Mr. Faulkner, you would not be able to get many, many, many of the same star or planet or whatever showing the exact same cymatic manifestations. I'm sorry, but ballooning, flowering doesn't work that way. Being out of focus doesn't work that way. And I'm not denying that what you're saying is true. But you, as always, don't ever cover the complete story. You just, cherry pick it and then fabricate the rest and then lie about the rest on top of that. You guys are despicable. Let's continue.
So that additional modulation is omitted from analog observations. Okay.
Yeah, because the digital processing is picking up something that you cannot see with the naked eye, right? it's like, for example, if you like a digital camera, if you shoot something in slow motion, or even an analog camera or whatever, and you're picking out certain, frames or something like that, you're basically making the camera do work for you that your eye isn't capable of doing for itself, right? And again, I'm not saying this happens all the time, but I do think, and this is the first thing I looked into, it's like, well, isn't that funny? Because I can look at Sirius with my P1000, and Austin, you could take your P900 and take the same picture, and we would see almost identical the same type of pulsing and cymatic pattern that it does that. What now? How do you explain that, right? Unless there's something else going on there.
Right, just local energy emission. But of course, they can't explain it.
I know. And even if we're wrong, at least we're trying to, make an attempt instead of just following the mainstream line and saying it's this way or the highway. I mean, you guys they have no imagination.
No, and by the way, how they can prove that is another sun?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is it another sun? And they don't even acknowledge the other sun that I truly believe that we have here. And, of course, because the astronomer from, God, what the hell's the name of that site again, Jeran? The guy that said that we do have a second sun.
Sloan, I think.
Sloan, yeah, okay. He said, yeah, we definitely do have a second sun. NASA doesn't like to show it. It's been documented in other documents around the world. Things like this going back hundreds of years. Things like this have been documented. They just get buried. And of course, they want people to believe that, well, anything that was discovered 100 years ago or more, that it's unreliable because, that's back in the age of antiquity and we didn't have any good tech back then. It's like, really? Well, at least back then in the 1960s, we could go to the moon. Can't do that today in 2022. So I don't know, whatever. So let's continue watching this for a bit.
Can't have multiple focuses on things. And so those blobs you see, those undulating blobs of light played with P900, P1000, those are badly out of focus. And you can see here what a good focus is. You should get it focused down so the light is as small as possible.
Right, badly out of focus with exactly the same modulated pattern. That's very interesting, and I do not discount that, and neither should you.
Well, then you'll know it's in focus at that point.
So now, I noticed here also that the one that's Polaris isn't the one that's closest to the center.
No, it's not. There are other stars that are actually a little closer. Yeah, good point there. Oh, and one other thing, I think you've made a list of this yourself.
What difference does that make? So he put Polaris at the top of the frame and they're making a deal out of it? I don't even know what they're trying to say right now. Unbelievable.
Okay, well, I get it. So what it is they're really super zoomed in. They're zoomed in so much that like the circuit that Polaris makes is like taking up the whole screen here, right? But Polaris makes a circuit that's like, I don't know, 1/4 of a degree in the sky, right? It's like nothing, 1/8 of a degree, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Jeez.
On your website, I've made a list too.
Yeah.
The position of Polaris is changing. We astronomers measure positions in the sky. We call it declination and right ascension. They're very similar to latitude and longitude on the Earth. And due to an effect called precession of the equinoxes, that's continually changing. And if you look up in an astronomical almanac, which I've done over many years, going back to 1948, and you compare them every year, the position of Polaris is a little different.
So I have,
and we have his
on screen right now the nautical almanac from 1900.
Yeah.
And the one from
what's the declination? What's the declaration from 1900?
The declination. Oh, there it is.
And yet devices like the Antikythera device, which is well over 2,000 years old, shows Polaris to be exactly where it is today. How do you explain that, Faulkner? I mean, you got to be kidding me. I don't care what the books say. I mean, I would much rather trust an existing piece of technology. Not only that, you have the Antikythera device. You have the little, oh God, what are they called? The little the wheels for the north and south. What are those things called? Brain cramp.
The wheels. Planetospheres.
Planispheres. Yeah, exactly. You look at those things and nothing has ever changed. So yeah, it may change slightly, but the fact is that, Polaris should be changing by a pretty good degree. And it's how many years are we supposed to have a new pole star, John?
Well,
4,000.
okay, so we're supposedly processing. The Earth is supposedly wobbling one wobble every 26,000 years, and so
called
it
a great
goes
year,
through about a
25,920.
degree every 72 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet we've never recorded
but of course, the thing is never has Polaris even gone through a smidgen of this so-called precession as it should, according to the spinning ball Earth. Not a single degree, ever.
That's right. And why would the Egyptians, if they're doing things, hieroglyphically 2,000 years ago, and any other culture for that matter, seems to show Polaris in precisely the same spot that it is in the sky? I mean, how do you explain that?
Yep.
You don't. What you do is you make up a bunch of crap and you lie about it. So, all right, let's continue.
Yeah, these guys are
Well,
full
yeah,
of
you
shit, man.
just like what they're doing. Well, you just do what they're doing, and you divert back over to the other side, and say like vague, ambiguous nonsense claims, and then have gamma, circle jerks.
Yeah.
What did Iru say that you said that Gleason talked about the movement of Polaris?
Yes, in his book from the famous book, it's the Bible from Heaven, and the rest is the Earth a Globe. He talks about. I have that video here.
Okay, and what you want to share screen?
If you want, yes.
Okay,
yes.
I'll go ahead and give you.
I cannot. Yes, give me 1 second. Of course, the video in this case is in Spanish, but the book is in English, and the images is going to show what he's. I mean, this is the book, and Alex Gleason. It was the version of 1890, and he points in the chapter or the page 32, Polaris and the Great Bear, and he talks about that the Polaris star is not the true north, and when he made the observation, he tested, or he looks at Polaris, and Polaris was 1 degree with 22 minutes 24 seconds off of the actual true north by his observations. And what that means is that he put all the calculations there. He took the big bear as a reference, and he described his process. And then if you take this and trying to illustrate what he is mentioned is that, let me just skip forward. Of course, you can put this in the show notes to anybody out there wants to, study the topic. But what he's mentioned is, if you go to a stellarium and you jump to the actual location of Gleason at that particular moment in time, he talks about 1890 and that particular hour, and all the things that he said in the book. And what he's trying to say is that this was the actual location of Polaris when he makes the observation, which is 20 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes, which means 1 degree, and 24 minutes. That particular distance from the center of the celestial north, if you want to see in the way, the true north, it's not in 1890, but it was in 1871. So he doesn't clarify if he puts note from other astronomers or he himself, but observations made 20 years ago from this actual year. But he he said that it's better if you put Polaris in a orientational, horizontal line. You know, that is why the video is jumping in this case. But this is the exercise that Gleason said. You know, resuming again, more clear. When he took observations in that particular year to Polaris from his location in Buffalo, he detected that Polaris was 1 degree and 24 seconds off into the to the center, or from the center of the celestial, you know, true north pole, or true north center. So if you go to a stellarium and you rewind to that particular time, it's actually matched with that observation. Not exactly in the 1890s, but in the 1871. So that is why I said before, I don't know if Gleason's put an observation made 20 years ago from his book, which could be possible, or there was some offset, whatever is the case. So when you go to Polaris and start updating the years to our days, now Polaris is more close to that center in the north, true North Pole, which is almost 40 minutes, 20 minutes here, 40 minutes here. And supposedly, when the time goes by, Polaris must be almost in the center. That is what he said in his book. And for me, it was a little, you know, at least to take into consideration. When you going back in time, you can see the Polaris move a little bit to the left, to the east in this case, until that was the date of Gleason books. This is the date of when Gleason published his book. And then if you go back a little more time, 20 years to be precisely, you have that 1 degree and 24 seconds off of the center. That is what he said in his book, which is at least something to take into account, because this is not a proof of a spinning Earth. This is just a proof of this offset in the sky. He didn't mention that the Earth is rotating or moving, okay?
Yeah.
Just that.
They've never been able to even show us how they know that the Earth is rotating, other than, thanks, Bob.
No, but that I don't even take into account. Well, you must be a lunatic if you think that the Earth is moving. This is the part of the way of every, you know, human being out there trying to explain things that are in other dimension from our capabilities of take no measurement, but to prove or to see more, you know, more pure without any other factor of distortion or things like that. You cannot go there. And, you know, even like I always mention, all these observations are made under our atmosphere, and we have distortion from that thing. Also, you have distortion maybe from the magnetic source of our plane of existence. So you cannot, you know, take this as a material object in a specific location out there in the space without taking into account all the factors that maybe affect the light and the behavior of the light. And that means the electric field, the magnetic field, the atmospheric distortion, a lot of things you need to have in mind. And it's not easy. That is why we are still trying to discuss and understand what happened up there. But remember that even Aristoteles talked about that this world, this kingdom has a different, different physics from the Earth. Of course, that doesn't mean it's true, but I think that is a little bit of a clue that nobody knows what happened up there. And it's really difficult to really go there and check for yourself. And the other thing is, okay, we are talking about stars when at least they must be talking about suns. Change the word, because a star, it doesn't mean a sun. Start
Exactly.
means another thing, for example. So if you want to be correct, at least use your, words.
Was that
for
another Jesuit
naming.
invention that stars are suddenly suns, or
Yes.
that figures, of course.
Yes, but this is a really interesting topic, at least to take into account. Of course, Gleason, it wasn't a god, and his observation or his declarations could be put in how you say a question.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Very good. So where exactly are like Vega and Thuban? I mean, because obviously they would have to be arcing in, right, on a circular path somewhere to take that place. And how exactly does that work? And the reason I ask that is because when you have something that is constantly resetting year after year after year after year, how does that make it conducive to a new North Star being eked in, every however many years it is? I mean, that's the thing that's always puzzled me, especially when you are talking about, you're going around the whole galaxy once every 25,920 years, right? And the thing that's really crazy about that is, of course, we're going in 5, 6 different directions all at once. And somehow, even with all those multitudes, billions, and trillions of combinations of star position, it resets to the same thing every year, year after year after year after year.
Yeah, that is the other topic to discuss. I mean, we never see different stars, and even this movement of Polaris, it has a cycle which can be returned to the center, after a period of time. He is not saying that we're going to have a new pole star. He just mentioned that Polaris has a little movement cyclically.
Which would be part of the sky clock. I mean, if it didn't have any movement, then you would just have one rotation. It'd be hard to keep track of time. But if it has an additional motion on top of that as well.
Yeah. And the other thing is the ballers seem to want you to believe that, oh yeah, everything we've known is heliocentric for 2,000 years, when, we have firsthand testimony that they were teaching flat Earth as early as 100 years ago, from eyewitness testimony. And there's tons of printed literature talking about it long before that. And it's just crazy, so and remember, we were all taught in school that the whole idea, behind Christopher Columbus doing, part of his mission was to prove that he wasn't going to sail off the edge of the earth, right? So it just seems like they want to keep taking it back further and further and further, because, and then making up stories, right? Because then we have the Eratosthenes story, where, the whole sticks and shadows stuff, which has been disproved, or at least proven to work not only on a ball Earth, but on a flat Earth too. But then they up the ante and say, well, if you just would have done it with 3 wells or 3 sticks, then you'd find out that there's a ball Earth, but it would still work exactly the same way. And for Neil deGrasse Tyson to even say that is so dishonest, it's beyond belief. I mean, what logical part of that makes any sense at all?
Well, I think it's worth mentioning that the concept of refraction wasn't introduced to the scientific community until like the 1500s. And so the concept that Eratosthenes could somehow triangulate on an apparent sun without understanding what refraction was is pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, because you see, what he was actually measuring was refraction, right?
Bob,
he just didn't know it.
Real quick, it's part of a much larger video that I need to do, but let me share my screen and show you this. Oops, I didn't share with sound. I don't think you'll need it, though.
Okay, you're sharing?
Okay, so this is a presentation that was given back in 2016 about the Antikythera mechanism from Stanford. And they reconstructed it basically digitally to get what it looked like at the time. And so you can see that just with a one spinning mechanism like this, that it was able to keep track of every single planet, every single, the moons going around the Earth from a geostationary point of view. Now, I want to show, oh, that's interesting. I never even seen this. Notice how the moon ball spins. I've never seen that before. So that when it's a new moon, it's black facing down. Anyway, haven't seen that part. So you can see how it worked was this rotating wheel here, right? This is what you needed to turn to get the whole thing to turn. So when you look at the ancient literature about the guys who supposedly talked about this particular invention, let me see where I find it exactly where it is, because you can tell there we go. So if you look at like what Cicero said at the beginning when they were talking, and they said the orrery recently constructed by Poseidonus or whatever, with which at each revolution reproduces the same motions of the sun and moon and the 5 planets. So he's talking about turning that handle, right? Turning that circle in a circle. So imagine how easy it was for somebody to come along and say, oh shit, what if we just, instead of turn that circle, we turn the earth? So then you'll notice that as time goes on, they start changing the literature to where now all of a sudden it's this globe on which we were delineated the motions of this blah, 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 with the Archimedes had thought out a way to represent accurately by a single device for turning the globe, those various and divergent movements of their different rates of speed. But there was no globe originally. The antikythera mechanism wasn't a globe.
No,
but
it's based on a geocentric flat Earth.
Right. So they just changed the basic literature, or in the speaking. I don't think these guys were talking about it. I think that people wrote for them, obviously. So it's just interesting that you can see it go straight from talking about it as it's the revolution of that circle. So you turn your hand in that circle, and that everything then is kind of works itself out. But then you change it to the revolving of a globe. So all you do is you go back here and you say, instead of having where's that picture over here? So instead of having this whole mechanism built and needing to turn it with a circle, all of a sudden you can just say that we, the observer, are in the middle and we are turning. And then the whole thing turns as it normally does. So it's not even a difficult deception.
No.
And
no.
You can actually hear this guy. Watch the guy. I'm actually reshare with sound because I want you to hear. Watch when this guy who's giving this presentation, and he's a big time scientist guy who was tasked with going down and reconstructing this mechanism. He thought that it was like, it's not even going to be something, right? There's no way that these people back then knew this stuff. So as he started to put it together is when he realized that they were far more advanced than we are. Because in order to build this, is when you go back and you look at this is a good speech to listen to. When you go back and look at the actual construction of this and what it involved, I mean, this is the kind of wheels upon wheels upon wheels upon, and you had to cut out the perfect amount of notches in your gear. This is the levels of it. It's insane. So he kind of had a coming to moment where he realized this is insane, because they even kept getting to points and saying, well, we don't know what this wheel would be for. It can't possibly be for anything. And then as they put things together like this, they realized that this machine describes exactly the Soros cycle. It is exactly an 18.03 year repeating thing that nobody could build this today.
Right. And there's one thing that's very conspicuously missing from this also. And that is, if you think about it, if our sky was truly like 3-dimensional and we had star distances or celestial distances going from 238,000 miles to the moon to 93 million miles to the sun to 450 light years for Polaris, and everywhere in between and beyond, then you would have to take the parallax from each and every single one of those bodies into account, right? Because they're all going to have different parallax values because they all are at different distances out, right? So isn't that what they tell us? They say, oh, well, the reason that things don't seem to move very far is because they're so far away. Well, yeah, you have things that are out there, though, in space that vary by trillions and trillions and trillions of miles. And yet, whenever you do any triangulation on them or anything like that, like the Antikythera shows, or even a sextant, right? It all appears that all of the celestial bodies, the sun, moon, and the stars, are roughly on exactly the same plane, right?
Well, that is because it's projected in the same layer of atmosphere.
Yeah,
agreed.
Everything is compressed to one giant screen, which is our sky.
Right.
That is why it's
and
very
if that's true,
important,
then how in the
we
world
all-
could we possibly
It's
glean any
impossible.
That's
Yeah,
impossible.
exactly. It's impossible.
Well, yeah, we
But
could
they
never
can
know the
take
actual
that into
sizes
account.
or.
And where they came up with the sizes anyway was you had to get a certain distance away, where then as long as you're past that distance, then the human eye couldn't see it anyway, and no telescope could see it. So that's what they did. They had that's why the stars are so far away that it's ridiculous. Is because they had to put them that far to explain the no parallax. You couldn't put them
exactly. It's so funny. It's like I try to tell the Glovers. Like if you understand the concept, if you really understand the whole perspective, it's like they didn't discover that these stars were magically this far away. They were like, for us to even pretend we're going to start making up this new story of the Earth, they have to be this far away.
In fact, Tycho said that they can't be far away because we don't see any parallax. He said if they were, they would have to be X amount of distance away, which was basically infinite. You know, to them it would have been ridiculous talking about not just millions or billions of miles, but getting into trillions. They would have just dismissed it full out, and they did, except for Kepler killed him and then stole his work, and then came out and said, no, they're infinite distances away. But let's listen to this presentation real quick, because I want you to listen when he describes the changing of the turning of the wheel into the globe. You can tell this guy is trying to get something across. He has to stop, and you'll just hear it. You can tell he's got a problem with it.
East to west, probably going to Rome, but not definitely. The route really tells us almost nothing about the origin of the mechanism. So we want more sorts of information. And there are some very remarkable classical texts by Cicero, who wrote first about a device made by Posidonius, which at each revolution reproduces the same motions of the sun, the moon, and the 5 planets that take place in the heavens every day and night. Sounds just like the Antikythera mechanism. And Cicero knew Posidonius. He was a pupil of Posidonius, as in his Stoic school of philosophy in Rhodes. So this might suggest there's a connection with Rhodes. But Cicero also wrote about Archimedes. Archimedes was killed in the siege of Syracuse in 212 BC, and Cicero reports that the victorious Roman general Marcellus took just 2, they were described as globes, sphaerae, which are thought to refer to these sort of mechanisms that Archimedes had made. And again, the description sounds just like the Antikythera mechanism. The motions of the sun and moon and of those 5 stars, which are called wanderers, the 5 planets, Archimedes had thought out a way to represent accurately by a single device for turning the globe, those various.
So why did he pause there?
By a single device.
To say the globe. Because
he knows.
Yeah, because he changed it from the revolution of that wheel to a globe, and you watch him kind of even freeze up there.
And it's Archimedes had thought out a way to represent accurately by a single device for turning the globe, to represent accurately by a single device the globe, those various and divergent movements.
It's so weird that he even goes back and repeats that part. But by the end of this guy completely changed his opinion of science, basically, and what we're told in the time periods, because it's just simply we're missing something, right? If this was built anywhere near when they say it was, and it's hard to say that it was faked. I don't think you can actually really come up with a good argument for that, because it was found in the shipwreck. Now, could it have been only 700 years old and not 2000? Sure. You could get into that kind of semantics, but also the things of that era are nowhere close to this. In fact, we can't build it today, right? They wouldn't have been able to do this today without the old one getting them started, because they had to look at they were able to find, I don't know how many they found. It's not as many as you would think. They found like 8 different, I'm trying to see where they show it, 8 different sections of these wheels, right? And they were able to do what's called, it's like 3D. Right? So you can keep sending an X-ray through different slices, and they were able to keep picking up, like they would basically only get a small section like this of the mechanism. They would see that, and they would say, okay, well, there's a wheel that has, and then you would be able to estimate it based on the size of the circle. They would say, okay, there's 8 notches here, so if we calculate that out, it comes out to 270 or whatever. So they were able to keep constructing the mechanisms based off just little segments that they found. And if it wasn't for that, and they even kept getting to different teeth, like E4 they call it, or E3, some other guy calls it, where they kept getting to places where they'd say, we don't know what this wheel was for. it must have been a mistake, because why would there be 222 teeth? There's nothing that coincides with that. Well,
it must be a mistake, right? Like these fucking guys that made this thing are doing mistakes in there for sure.
Right, and then it's crazy because they would find that, then they would find some other wheel, and then they would realize, oh, if this wheel was connected to that one and it did turn like this, and they would add it all up, and they would say, oh my God, this actually shows. So this thing got so precise, it told you exactly the hour of the day where eclipses would take place. And they didn't realize that at first, because they didn't realize what that huge wheel was for, and that's what that wheel was for. That wheel that had the 222 teeth was meant to show you the exact hour that the eclipse would happen.
And in addition to that, Jeran, they also, and this, I don't have no idea how they've done this, but they said that the one I was watching was talking about how they could even tell you what color the eclipse would be. And throughout the eclipse, it would start out, a certain color and end up a certain color.
He may have said something. Yeah.
That blew me away. It's like, but one thing they're not telling
ridiculous.
you, one thing they're not telling you guys, because if it was true, they'd be crowing about it until the hens came home. And that is that it's based on a heliocentric universe. Right. It's not.
And in fact,
dude, it's so funny.
Predicted from the Soros cycle, which is exactly from this. So we can even say that nobody would have known the Soros cycle if it wasn't for this. Maybe their globe would have predicted it. But here he kind of talks about that real quick. I'll listen.
Jones came to our conference that we organized, and he told me something that I'd missed about these letters. I feel somewhat shamefaced to admit that I missed this, but they are in alphabetical order. And there's a whole alphabet's worth of index letters without bars on, followed by a second alphabet with bars on top. And these must surely in some way refer to the inscriptions round the dial.
I thought he was talking about the...
by this time I had a nice story that I had the dial as an eclipse prediction dial. I had the glyphs. And this index letter system. I can't go into the whole system, don't have space. If you're interested, you can Google Antikythera and PLOS 1, that's Public Library of Science 1, and it's an open access journal, anyone can read it. I'd just say that this is a prediction scheme of quite astonishing ambition. The index letters, you look at the index letter in the glyph, you look at it in the inscriptions, and that tells you characteristics of the eclipse. It's an extraordinary scheme. But going back to late 2005...
But Bob's right that they do even go as far as to say the type of eclipse, or like it's close, or it's far, or it's red, or it's pink, or it's blue.
So here's a question. Whoever developed this thing, just how many eclipses was their civilization privy to witness before they could get it down to that sort of an exact science? I mean, they must have been observing eclipses for millennia.
Well, they've probably had documentation of it, like internationally. Like that's why you had all the stories of burning the libraries. But like, what's funny is if you bring up how we can predict with the Saros cycle, and NASA still uses and references it, the Globe Earth Zealot response now is, no, they couldn't have ever predicted it nearly like we do now. And this is showing you that it can predict it down to the hour.
Well, and for all we know, wow, that's crazy. But, it's something that never really set well with me, as a globe earther. This is another one of those things. The alleged orbital velocity of the Earth, the sun around the galaxy, all these orbits would be so chaotic, so volatile, and yet we still have these perfectly repeating cycles. It really does speak to how reality doesn't jive with the heliocentric sort of cosmos theory. And it actually jives much nicer with the stationary flat Earth, of course. But, that never did set well with me as to just how perfectly repeating cycles can exist in this sort of volatile, chaotic
proves creation,
infinitude, right?
Proves not the floatingness of gas in the vacuum. But and just to mention, because I'm very skeptical about all these things. So actually, when I started watching this, my thought was that the Antikythera mechanism might be faked in some way. That I didn't quite grasp what they were getting at. And so it took me watching this guy's presentation and seeing where they're getting. So they actually show you the photos of the shipwrecked thing, and it's got gears. I mean, there's no other, they can't be from anything else. It's got gears that interconnect, and you can only see maybe a quarter of the gear. And so I thought they were making everything up after that, but no, it's because when you got a quarter of the gear, you can from that count the notches and realize what the rest of the gear would have been.
They actually prototyped some brand new types of X-ray equipment to be able to, see through that thing and all the gears that it has.
Right. They had to do a slice. It's like it's a 3D slice X-ray where you basically keep taking slices of it, and then you have to layer them on top of each other, and then you can get almost a 3D view of something. And that's what they had to do to see what was down below and which different things were connected, because they determined that there's bars connecting. Let me show one other thing here. This share screen just one more time. Just because
hang on a second, Jeran. MC Toon, I saw your message. Yes, we will put a link into your ridiculous, because I want people to see this and see how bad liar you and Danny are and how many stories you make up to support your phony fake model. So yeah, you betcha I'm going to put a link in there. Don't worry about that at all, buddy. But in the meantime, this is absolutely for critique and for exposing your lies, point blank. There you have it. So don't worry about it. You'll get your link. Continue on.
Yeah, so just this notch here, which is something they saw but couldn't figure out, and you can see it here in the actual. This is the 3D X-ray. This is the actual piece here, but that notch they couldn't figure out why would there be a notch there. Well, as the thing rotated around, like every so many turns, it would slip into a little section, and that notch actually, we can listen to this guy talk about it.
Right. There's 4 gears in this system. To Price's great credit, he saw that. And I want to look at the bottom gears, which are epicyclic gears, K1 and K2, and a particular feature of K2, which is very evident there, which is that it's got this notch out of it. Now, this was noticed in 1902, very early on, by Rados, but he didn't understand it. It was noticed by Price, who thought it was evidence that a tooth had broken, had been repaired, and the repair had dropped out. But Michael Wright, with his new X-rays, made a far more acute observation. He said that there's a pin on K1 which engages with a slot on K2, and in that way, gear K1 carries gear K2 around. Now, I think most people's reaction would be that this is an entirely useless idea. The gears will turn with the same speed, and you might simply just as well attach them to the same axle. But Wright made another really astonishing observation. He said that the gears turn on slightly different axes, slightly eccentric axes. The difference in the centers is just about a millimeter. And this makes all the difference. I want you to forget for a moment that these are epicyclic gears, and I'm going to show you a little animation that shows what this system does. I'm going to imagine that K1 goes round at a constant rate of the mean sidereal month. That's the gear with the pin on there. You can see K1. And on top of it sits K2. And as the gears turn, you'll see sometimes K2 is behind, and sometimes it's ahead of the pin gear. The slot gear is, you get this little variation in the motion of the slot gear. Notice that in this fixed axis situation, the period of rotation of the slot gear is the same as the input period, the sidereal month. And I'll come back to that. So going back to our actual mechanism, the key question was, could this model the variable motion of the moon? Wright considered this in a rather throwaway paragraph in one of his papers, and he discarded the idea because in his model of 2005, this large gear E3 rotated much too fast, 60 times too fast, for this to work in any meaningful way. He rejected this idea for exactly the same reason that Price rejected the idea that E3 might have 223 teeth. The gear E3 turned much too fast. But in my developing model, E3 turns, you remember, the Saros dial, which is a dial which has a period of 18 years over a 4-turn cycle. Everything's very slow, so it's going around very slowly. So maybe this is a promising idea. The second key question is, why is the pin and slot mounted epicyclically on E3? And I'm going to explain why that is. And I'm going to revert now to modern astronomy.
So I'll let people watch this and see everything that it does, which just tells you that it couldn't have been developed. There's no way, unless we've been lied to about history and we are on some sort of reset cycle to where we are starting all over.
I think we already know that's happening for sure. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I watched a ton of documentaries on this because if you remember, I first covered this like 4 or 5 years ago, and I was so blown away by it. I mean, I was just absolutely amazed that all of this, right down to not just the hour, but, right down to the minute, actually. And that the fact that they could actually predict the color of the eclipses just floored me. And, all the new technology, all the new innovations that came to be able to restore it. And bada bing, and again, it's all done off of a flat, geocentric based Earth, just like everything, just like,
really, I mean, what kind of a genius invents such a thing, though, right? And they would have had to first observe many cycles of the heavens and understood those cycles and documented those cycles, but then to convert that to a mechanism that keeps track of it, it really is astounding. And the fact that we don't know in our history just exactly who invented that, it goes to show you that we do, as a society, have a cultural sort of amnesia, and to deny that is folly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So, yeah. All right. So other things that they say in this, I'll play a little bit more of it, but, they talked about things like the Saros cycle. And again, it's like, why is it that NASA has to, use these external sources? What is it, Pasternak, whatever the guy's name is?
Fred Pasternak. Right?
Yeah. Why did they use him? Why is it that the astronomers, why couldn't Danny Faulkner himself tell us how we make these predictions? Why can't he tell us? Why don't they teach that to PhD level astronomers? Why doesn't NASA just tell us, they should know, right? Why do they have to go to Fred Pasternak or whatever his name is to get these cycles? It's almost like this is real tight, top secret knowledge that only this guy knows. And this should be something that should be calculable to every astronomer out there, right? And I bet you dollars to donuts, Danny Faulkner doesn't have a clue how they do this.
And he would just say, well, I can go to Stellarium and I can pick. Yeah, of course, you're using the answers that have been given to you. This is the whole problem. This is what they've done from the very beginning. And these guys aren't smart enough to see it because they think all truth gets handed down from teachers. And so the teachers told you, and now that's why Stellarium works, is because the teachers told them and they built it. So they don't even ever look at the fact of could those things have been discovered other ways and then introduced into a system. You build a system based on that and then call it proof for that system. And that's all it is. That these guys think that the things that have been handed to them are proof, but they don't even know how we got to those points. Again, it's the same thing with how we got the distance to the sun, they don't have a clue. When you start asking them, they trip over themselves because they're like, well, we got Venus went across the sun. Okay, so what did you called the distance between the sun and the earth 1 AU, and then you had this little thing go across it. So how would you have known the size of the sun? How would you have known the distance? How would you have known? And they get all convoluted because it doesn't make any sense unless you realize that you can't make up stories like that. You can't just say, well, we thought Venus was the same size as Earth and we just went with it. And guess what? We were right. Nobody believes that. Yeah. Just like nobody believes that the sun could be 400 times as big and 400 times as far as the moon. And we just happen to live in that little period of time where that's taking place. You've convinced yourself. This is the whole goal of science. And this is why these guys accept behind the curve as evidence for their globe Earth, is because they're so desperate for anything to allow them to keep their atheism that they will go and grab anything that's given to them, even a movie. And they tell us all the time, Bob, well, did you repeat that science? Is it repeatable? Is it, but then when I go and I say interesting, that's proof to them.
Yeah.
No
or I
repeat.
tell the truth, right? And say, yeah, we did pick up a 15 degree per hour. And they do that. They cut that out. They show that. But what they completely omit is my explanation that also was given to them as to what we figured out about it, right? That really pissed me off.
But why they do that is because they're self-projecting their immorality, their dishonesty. So like if they find information that's damning to their worldview preference, they would never like go talk to someone and honestly reflect it and have that moment of like uncertainty where they had to continue to figure it out. They would hide it, pretend they didn't see it, lie about it, manipulate it, do anything they could not to address it. So when they see you doing that from their like very limited nihilistic worldview, they think that that means that you're admitting you're wrong because they can't even fathom another alternative to acknowledging it. If I hope that made sense, but
they did, because here's the thing.
Well,
they
also use sort of a cinematic device. They used a cinematic device to insinuate that there was something behind what you were saying as well. I mean, it was suggested.
Right. That's when I tried.
There was nothing said.
That's why when I tried to go to a lawyer about what they did, they said, well, no, because they didn't in the movie ever say. If they would have said, I proved curvature, then I would have had a case. Mm-hmm. They didn't say anything like that. The people who watched the movie inferred that. They took it away from that.
Right.
It was never said in the movie anywhere that I proved curve or that the experiment I did proved curve. They left that part out because they knew that would put them into legal trouble if they did that. So what else they do with Bob is that they act like Bob is this evil, wicked man because he got this test result and then he tried to explain it in another way. Said, no, we don't like that result. We're going to look at this one. Well, guess what? There's a big difference between us trying to point out that what we're being told is a lie and Edwin frickin' Hubble, who sees galaxies moving away from him and says we have to stay away from the absolute horror of a unique position. So he invented the fact that it's expanding and we live on a balloon and everything's moving away from each other and somebody's blowing up the balloon. All that is exactly what basically Bob did, only to a whole nother level. Bob said, okay, that would explain. Okay, yeah, they could explain that as the Earth is spinning. How else can we look at it, right? Edwin Hubble didn't say that. Edwin Hubble didn't say, yeah, well, we could say we're the center and let's do some math about that. Let's do some experiments about that. No, he said we have to stay away from that no matter what. Right. And so everything that's been built since then is built off of a lie.
The funniest part though is that even if it did pick up 15 degrees per hour, it couldn't be explained by axial rotation because that isn't actually how it would work. It would never. Oh my goodness!
What about all the other movements?
It would never establish rigidity. It would never establish rigidity to ever even tell the difference. It would just go haywire if the Earth was actually spinning. So like that's just a stupid claim anyway. That would happen because of axial rotation. It's not true.
And, they had already proved, long ago, over 100 years ago, the results we got. Like I said, mainstream science had already done it. The Michelson-Gale experiment. Why didn't the ball earthers point at Michelson-Gale and say, there's our proof. There's our proof positively that it is the Earth rotating and not the sky. Why? Because that opens up a whole other can of worms. Because not only would they have to explain that, but then they'd have to change their explanation for the Michelson-Morley experiment, right? And get rid of this whole nonsense of length contraction and all that. So Airy's failure comes along, and using a simple optic method that is incredibly simple, incredibly accurate, proves beyond any reasonable doubt whatsoever, virtually undebunkable, that shows that the stars are rotating above the Earth and not the Earth rotating the stars. But no, we even went one further when we were looking for other explanations, which is what you're supposed to do in good science, right? Of course it is. So when, we went and we devised, actually I devised it, I came up with the idea and I said, look, if this is truly the ether, then, and we know the ether propagates in a vortexual motion, then we should have different spin rates at different altitudes on the same latitude. And we tested just that. And absolutely, we got a huge variance in speed change for that, right? Do they have any explanation for that? No, they don't. They don't want to acknowledge that. they don't want to acknowledge Airy's failure. Other than that, they have absolutely no proof whatsoever at all. And still to this day, they will try and tell us that, laser interferometry actually measures gravitational waves. How does it do that? What is a gravitational wave, right? A bending of space-time?
So if it was predicted by Einstein, they needed it to come true because when you hear people say, oh, relativity's been proven time and time again, go look into those proofs. They are laughable. They are laughable.
They're a joke.
They lost some star behind the sun. It's just such a joke. As if they knew the exact location of this star, and then they predicted, well, if it's true, then we'll see this star when it's an eclipse when we're not supposed to see it. And then they just said we saw it. Well, where's the evidence of that? Just take their word for it. Yeah.
Well,
this is what they've done with Einstein.
And with that, I would say correlation doesn't mean causation either, right? That the stars moving during the eclipse could be any number of things that has nothing to do with gravitational lensing. But
it's even more
again,
egregious than that.
He's talking mean cause.
But he's talking about how the prediction they claim they had is just a lie. They didn't even have that prediction. Like that, they did not previously predict. That's just a lie. The narrative is that never was observed. They had an amazing prediction, and then pow wow, it was observed, and that didn't happen though. All they have to do is say that, and then they have people running around and repeating it, and then it's just the fact of
they actually have a lie that they were. So imagine you've got the mathematics of the sky, you've got what you think the sizes of these things are, and everything's rotating and everything's orbiting. And then you look at it and you say, well, wait a second, this isn't orbiting correctly. The first thing that you would do is you would immediately think that your sizes and distances and masses of the planets that you have no fucking idea how big they are, what size they are, what their mass is, that would be your first. No, they pretend like the assumption would be there must be another body out here. There must be another planet that we don't see. And I think it would be here. And we look up in the sky and there's Neptune. What do you know? We discovered this because we saw that there was a variation, and it's a ridiculous story that has no truth, and yet people fall for it. They don't think to themselves as if you were just put yourself on Earth with with nobody else, or just you're able to look at the sky and infer things. To think that you would then assign mass to those planets in the sky. How do you prove it? You can't. You don't know the mass of Saturn. Doesn't matter. And then they act like, well, what about all the planets? What about all the moons of Saturn? Back then there was only 10. Now there's 87. So it's so stupid because they act like everything was so perfect that then they saw this little variation and say there must be a planet there. That wouldn't be your first assumption. Your first assumption would be, well, I'm sure we guessed wrong on one of those things we guessed on. Not. I'm sure the guesses that we made are exactly correct, and therefore we can predict there's a planet.
But see, the thing is their guesses are exactly correct all the fucking time, though. It's just so convenient to be them.
Right, and it's a system that's why math doesn't prove reality. And until people grasp that it can prove reality, especially when you're talking arithmetic and you're talking about things that can be proven to be such, right? So you can say, well, these 2 apples plus these 2 apples equals 4 apples. Yeah, if we have 2 apples and 2 apples equals 4. But when you're talking about the mass of things in the sky, you're just assigning values to them that you can change whenever you want. Because it's just your system has to balance. But the fact that the system balances doesn't mean that it's real. It means that you created a system that balances. That's it.
And it's hilarious because they act like it couldn't be mathematically mapped out if the Earth were assumed stationary. Right. And actually, that just makes it like a million times easier and more effective mathematically.
That's why they used geocentric mathematics for all their orbiting satellites.
Yeah.
Why don't
everything? Yeah.
Which is insane, right? It's completely insane. We're told to assume a flat, stationary, non-rotating Earth for everything, flight dynamics. I mean, everything, literally. Well, that doesn't make any sense.
Well,
I mean, it changes the physics in every way.
But field goals.
Yeah,
everything but field goals in the NFL.
Yeah,
but it's just, the point is ironic that they run around regurgitating math as if it is proof of their worldview. But ironically, the math would work a million times better, assuming the Earth's stationary and geocentric. In fact, you still have to treat it that way almost every time to use your math.
We could go on and on about this. We should just do a show where it's all about the ancient stories of the speed of light being measured by the candle and mirrors being able to be like so ludicrous. How about the fact that the speed of light first calculated by putting 2 people on different ends of the Earth, supposedly, and watching the moons of Jupiter, right? and the times they come out. But these guys didn't have watches; they had pendulum clocks. How would you ever sync a pendulum clock between you and somebody else 4,000 miles away in the year 1600? Give me a freaking break. But these guys just
Is that a pendulum in your pocket? You just happen to see me.
Yep. And
Dude,
the
they
thing
wrote
about
the
that
story
is,
like if you actually visualize it, it just makes you laugh out loud. If you actually visualize it.
Yeah, they just send some guy on a ship with a pendulum clock, and he goes down there, and they're like, "Okay, let's start now. We both have our pendulum." Yeah, you couldn't have lifted the pendulum up a little too high or anything. It's just, it's asinine.
it is ridiculous. You know, the funny part about it too is that all of Einstein's theories, you know, his theory of relativities, are absolutely 100 million billion % dependent on the speed of light never, ever, ever changing, right? And what they do is, every time they measure it, it's different. Absolutely every single time to this day. And all they do then at that point is they just renormalize it. Remember renormalizing? That's all they do, just to keep putting that same number out there when it's absolutely a lie. And then they will even put in their publications, you know, about, how we've discovered this and it goes faster than the speed of light. When Einstein said absolutely nothing could ever do that, right? So, I mean, every time they turn around, they are completely contradicting themselves on things that are supposedly dogmatic, right? Never can break this rule, otherwise it's all gone. Well, Einstein's been debunked so many times by his own self. Why does anybody even listen to anything that clown ever said?
No, the reason that he's held up is because when things started happening like Michelson-Morley, when they didn't have an explanation, they looked for somebody to come and explain it away. And he did that. He came away. Okay,
so he actually was a hero of sorts.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. He's not really a scientific hero, but he's a hero in the fact that he was able to explain away with some math and some figures, which again, with math, you could do anything. You can create any magic that you wanted with math, and you could convince people that it's real. How about this one? And I've showed the paper before. If I can find the Harvard paper, I will. The negative parallax problem, which is a huge problem in the fact that in the heliocentric model, there should not be such thing as negative parallax. Okay, stars should always.
Is that parallax with a bad attitude, or another negative parallax?
Not that kind. No, negative parallax where it falls. they call it it's an optical illusion, they say. But I've read in the Harvard paper where it tells you every time you see this positive parallax to go ahead and mark it down in your little book, and then if you see a negative parallax, that you should just mark it as positive. And that's what they basically tell people. Because it's the negative parallax. And I've showed this before in that sky clock, that when it would click forward 4 times and then click back, which kind of keeps the North Star where it should be. And yet they tell us that there's all positive. I'll find that paper for you.
Yeah,
that is some gravy, bro.
What's the difference?
That's some gravy, dude. I'll tell you what's funny is they always they claim the authority of these like highest levels of academia in their mind. It's just an idea. They just say they, scientists, blah, 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 professionals, blah, blah. But when you actually go read the highest levels like Harvard and stuff, they really break down the glaring errors for you pretty blatantly.
Yeah,
so it's hilarious. Like
they're just not passed down to their little cheerleader boys who go around. It's like what's his name? I was going to do this as a presentation today, but I'll just Professor Dave in his 10 challenges for flat earthers or whatever. One of the things he says is, why don't you make a map? We made a map. Why don't you make a map? It's like, dipshit. That took 200 years of government money to make even a map that even came close to what we see today, right? And yet this guy's like, flat earthers, why don't you make a map? If you can't make a map, then you can't even be in the conversation. It's the dumbest opinion I've ever heard somebody give. Like, you can't even recognize what it took.
Well, Jeran, but it's the same thing as if you ask him, construct your own spaceship and go to Mars and prove me that NASA is there. Right. It's exactly the same thing.
You're right. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yep. Yeah, and the other thing he says is, flat Earth, you want to prove the Earth's flat? Why don't you go show me something from 1,000 miles away? So that just tells me Professor Dave doesn't understand that we have an atmosphere that you can't see through. It's like, is he so dumb to think that that's all? That if the Earth was flat, we'd be able to see 1,000 miles? Does he not realize that?
Well, I've used that argument, and I've had people tell me, no, I need to prove that I'm lying. And it's like, wow, just observe mountains in the distance, the closer mountains, to prove that the atmosphere
go outside when it's foggy
becomes opaque.
Yeah. Well, what about angular size? It's
seriously,
that's not the only thing. Angular size, people say, well, why can't I see Europe from New York? Well, there's this little thing called angular size, and especially when it's down on the ground, it's going to cut that off first.
Oh, and
right?
the other thing is they think a telescope
Bob.
can see through the atmosphere. They think the telescope should be able to, like, I'm sure, because Bob, if they said angular size, then they would say, well, just pull out a telescope to make it bigger. But you're like, okay, the telescope magnifies what it can see. It cannot go through the atmosphere. You cannot see a telescope across the Atlantic Ocean, and that would be the worst place to look anyway, because where's the air the worst? Right above the ocean. So you're not going to be able, and if you could, you can't zoom in with a telescope. You can only magnify what's already seen.
Yeah.
But dude, if the entire ocean froze and gave us the clearest conditions ever, and we did see something 1,000 miles away,
refraction,
he would still say there's a globe. Exactly. He would say
it disappears because of that non-existent horizon. The globe, the mathematically predicted horizon, and that still kills me. You guys, Mr. MC Toon, you are so freaking laughable. That, for years you're telling us, oh, well, you can't see past that because of the geometric horizon. And now you're saying there is no such thing as a geometric horizon. And in a mathematical model, clown shoe, there has to be a geometric horizon. That's the way the math works. Or do you not understand that? And we have
it's really simple.
Yeah, we've proven 1,000 times from Monday that you can see way past the alleged geometric horizon by miles, hundreds and hundreds of miles. And what do you say? Oh, it's refraction. You claim it, and then you say, well, you have to take into account the standard refraction index too. And again, where does this standard refraction figure come from? Right?
I'll tell you where it came from. It's when they calculated how far we could see, used that to create the curvature formula. Then all of a sudden we could see further because of optics. And they said, oh shit, we can see further now. How do we correct that? Oh, 76R. We'll make a standard refraction. And then this way we're back to where we are. Now with the P900, P1000, they're going to have to do a little bit more standard refraction because we're all seeing further than we
right.
But again, the thing that proves that dead wrong.
People originally going.
Good, Bob.
I was going to say,
when people originally thought they were seeing curvature, like going back to Eratosthenes, he was actually seeing refraction. So what he thought was curvature was actually light curvature, basically, right?
Yeah.
Our vision falls away at about
now that we know that, yeah. But so okay, if it was a ball, we should see actual vertical descent due to physical curvature, as well as apparent diminishment in angular size due to perspective.
Good point.
And refraction, right? We should have all three of these things. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
Well, really
but I would just
three.
like to point out
Yeah.
since McLooney Tunes is a fan of the show and is listening, he actually told me in a debate, and this is just bringing up for the general psychosis of the brain that is the globe side, that the coefficient of 2 or more must be present, meaning you could see something around literally the entire Earth back to where you were. It would infinitely refract.
Correct.
Dude,
and let me tell you why that's wrong.
Bro.
Let me explain for Toon why that's wrong, okay? And I've explained this for lots of you guys here, but we know they're listening now, right? So your 76R, which is utterly horseshit, and this is why we don't ever actually see things very seldom. We never see light bend down, right? We've seen lasers shoot up in the air, right? We've seen that. But here's the problem with the 76R, right? If you're on a ball and you fire a laser and you make it perfectly level, right? And you fire that laser out, by the time that laser beam goes 100 miles out, well, then it's 6,666 feet above the surface of the Earth, which would make the atmosphere much, much, much thinner. Now, what does it take to refract a beam of light, right? You have to increase the medium. You have to increase the density of the medium. How is that possible when the nature of the globe in and of itself is as you move one way or any direction, you're automatically decreasing the medium, right? How is it being pulled down? How is that even possible? And yet you're trying to make it seem like the exact opposite is true. And that's what gives us our standard refraction value of 76R. That is impossible, point blank. It doesn't work.
That all went over his head, bro. I mean,
I didn't get that. Bob, I never understood this one. If the reason that we see the sun and they say you're not actually seeing the real sun, it's still behind the earth, right? Or you see it late because of refraction, you're actually not seeing the real sun. You've heard that, right?
Right.
So how does it still move at 15 degrees an hour? How can the equatorial mount telescope track the sun then? Shouldn't it be jumping around? If we're getting too much of sun when we shouldn't it have to get caught up somewhere?
Well, it's not that it's tracking the sun specifically. It could be behind the horizon. Theoretically, it's tracking a point in space. Now, whatever happens to be there, well, then that's what you're tracking. So you don't have to actually have to see it, but see in their model, obviously it's going underneath the earth and down below it. Whereas with us on the flat earth, it's simply disappearing out of our angular resolution view, and also the atmospheric opacity attenuates it out to essentially nothing.
And that's why, we've already seen tons of proof of that it doesn't move at 15 degrees an hour. When it gets to the horizon, it pauses and takes a while from that point on. But that they won't accept that because they say, well, you're not allowed to do observations within 15 degrees of the horizon. I wonder why.
Yeah, well, because they say of the refraction.
Right. Messes it up too much, so we can't do that there.
Yeah. So again, how is it going to, how are you going to get something if you're going 50 miles out or 100 miles out and you're over a mile up in the air? How is that going to provide the conditions of an increasing density in the atmosphere to be able to pull the light down to bend it around the earth? It can't happen. And I've never seen it happen. And the only way they can make it happen is to sit there and pour butane all over something. It's like, yeah, we're going around breathing butane all day, right?
Their dishonesty is just embarrassing. It really is. It's like, if they didn't, it's like when they tell people that proof of the sphere is that if you get up higher, you can see further. I mean, that is a slap in the face to every thinking human being that realizes that it doesn't matter how flat the surface was, the same would be true. That a child that's 3 feet tall cannot see as far on the floor in a Home Depot as an adult who's 6 foot tall. Picture that Home Depot floor keeps going and it's a flat floor and it goes as far as it can go. The lower you are to the ground, the less far you can see. And they just take that and say, if you get up higher, you can see further, therefore only that works on a sphere. It's like, you're a liar, and every one of your scientists that keeps repeating that is a liar, period. End of story. You're saying that you wouldn't have to lie to get the truth across. You don't have to. You could just say, well, yeah, that's not actually a proof of the globe because you could see higher based on your angle of incidence, right? Your angle grows the higher that you are. So somebody who's 6 foot tall can see further on the ground than somebody who's 3 feet tall. Who can see further than a snake? A snake cannot see very far on the ground. Why not? Because it quickly occults. It quickly becomes, their horizon line would be very close. So snakes must think they live on little tiny spheres. Yeah. Do the calculation.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. And, anybody that has honestly looked at this, and these guys know better, and they've been destroyed in every single debate. They've literally got their ass handed to them. And yet they just keep making up straw man arguments and, pretending like they've got it all down, and they don't. I mean, the most dishonest, lying SOBs, I can't even believe they can get up in the morning and look at themselves. It's just beyond belief.
Yeah, the only way they could win debates is to basically set it up for their favorites. Like when I debated Red's Rhetoric, and they kept saying, you need to debate your model. And I said, I don't have a model. I'm not debating a model. Well, they eventually just gave up with telling me that. Then when it came time to the debate, they're like, okay, what's your model? I say, I don't have a model. Oh, he doesn't have a model. This debate was supposed to be about a model. Well, why do I have to have a model to say yours is wrong? But the reason why you say that is because you know that we were just a bunch of guys. How would we have created a model of the flat earth? What took you 500, 600, 700 years, according to even your own story. You've given us 5 years to create the same thing, an equal model. Are you kidding me?
What I would ask them,
but that's why
I would ask them, what model is correct for you? Which map is correct for you? Is it the Mercator? No, I don't think so. Is it the Gauss-Peter? Is it the Triple Winkle? Is it the which one is it? You have a million of them. Which one is correct? And they're going to come back and they're going to say that it's the projection. What the hell is the model of it again? The
Gales-Peters.
The which one?
Gales-Peters?
No, not the Gales-Peters. The database. Oh man, God, I hate getting old, man.
Nice. WGS one?
WGS 84. Yeah, the WGS 84, right? But then you say, well, why can't you project out a WGS 84 fully, right? Well, it's hard getting it on a ball. Well, why can't you put it on a ball? Why is it that when NASA gives us a picture of the Earth, the continent sizes are still the same as the Mercator and not on the Gauss-Peter, right? If the Gauss-Peter have the correct continent sizes, why doesn't the picture supposedly that NASA's given us reflect that?
And again, you'll never, ever, ever get a rebuttal. But kind of like how they really hate the phrase, we're 2 years into me being online, I just say the phrase a lot. Falsification is independent of replacements. And they can't even say that phrase out loud coherently. They're like, much less acknowledge it. So it's really bad.
Yep. And so they have to keep hitting us with straw man, just like what's on the screen right now, right? How many people have we seen come into chats and say, you guys are crazy. You guys are using a parabolic. 8 inches per mile is a parabolic. Therefore, it can't possibly be right. And it's like, no, we're not denying that. But for distances up to 1,000+ miles, it's right on the money. You can put it with AutoCAD or you can put it with the Sagitta, and it is absolutely dead nuts on. And of course, since we're not seeing past 1,000 miles, then the simplicity of the 8 inches per mile works perfectly, right?
But you didn't get science. You got that from Parallax from 1890. He believed in the flat Earth.
Yeah. It's like, well, you know what? It still works. So, that's the kind of straw man that we get hit with, Yep. Oh, crazy. So anyway, well, I guess we stirred up a hornet's nest of it's so funny. They think that we're so stupid, and yet they're all over everything we say. Austin got mentioned, I got mentioned on their show and all this stuff, and I never listened to him. I found out about that thing from Zack this morning. Zack goes, oh, look, Danny Faulkner was on with MC Toon. It's like, I've never watched a single episode of MC Toon ever. And I really didn't even watch this whole thing other than to note that they're full of crap about everything that they said. Because you know why? I don't give a shit what they say. I don't care what they say. I know they're delusional or they're paid liars or they're just stupid. One of the two. I don't know. But I'm not interested in what they have to say. And so that's why I thought it would be fun just to sit there and point out some of that stuff, because I am no fan of Danny Faulkner. And of course, Danny Faulkner, this is the genius that tells me that, well, you don't have to know the size or the distance to be able to tell anything about Polaris. And yet he can run the math on old numbers that I use that were fully 30% off, right? Remember when they revised the numbers of Polaris from 450 light years to 320 something, right? Anyway, so they revised it to be, 110, 115 light years off. And yet Danny Faulkner sitting there claiming that, oh, see, when I did it, it worked out perfectly. And he was using the exact same numbers that I was using, which of course were later to be found out supposedly wrong. And that was the 450 light year model. So they can't even admit that, it's like, well, wait a minute. If a mere 120 light years doesn't matter in your calculations, Danny, then what kind of a tolerance do you guys have? Right? It's unreal.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. You'll never ever get a rebuttal. And what's funny is, I don't know much about that guy, but he recently commented on one of my videos and he's like, scripturally married. I guess he's like, oh, I guess he says he believes in the Bible or something. I'm like, yeah, scripturally married. Would you like to have a conversation about that? Like what a clown.
You're dropping out, Austin.
You're cutting out.
Still dropping out. Austin, you're dropping out.
Dang.
Try again.
Yeah, try it again.
I hope I'm not breaking out, but I'm saying like the conversation is actually it's as simple as maybe the CIA would put those people out because it's such an open and closed debate that's literally the best that could be offered is dishonest obfuscation, and they tactically know that and implement that. So I'm like on the fence. I think they're so stupid that they could not be. There's no way they could be like CIA or something. That's my intuition. So I think that they're just they're just eluded.
Yeah, they do better with the blind believers, right? Because they have already convinced themselves that there's nothing that can be true unless that which comes down from the shoulders of giants, and anything coming from any of us, if we don't have a diploma and we don't have credentials, then we cannot possibly be correct. That's their whole premise, is because they themselves don't have a thought that's their own. So they can't imagine how anybody else could have a thought that's their own that could possibly be right if it didn't come from above. So it makes it very easy for them to just always feel right and talk about a superiority complex. When you think that everything that you say is correct because you got it from a book and those people must be correct, then you never have to think, and you never have to even ever assume you might be wrong. It's very comfortable.
Well, like we've covered, we've covered like 20 things they can't respond to. But watch this. I bet they can't. Neither one of those people or anyone that claims to believe the Earth's a globe and the Bible's true can answer this question. So then you believe that the Messiah, the Son of God, came to the earth and didn't tell the Hebrew people that they were entirely wrong about what they thought the Scriptures said the earth was.
Right.
Yeah, they won't. So I mean. Yeah, just ask them any of them to answer that.
Yeah.
But to your point, though, Jeran, it's a crazy phenomenon that these people are so sure that we're wrong. To your point, that they don't even bother inspecting anything that originates from our camp, because you're right that they don't, because they've never had any sort of original thoughts. Then they project that onto us as well.
Right, it
is a strange phenomenon.
When you have a thought, they just make fun of it. They just laugh and joke and hee-haw. Like if I make a video and I say speed of light debunked, like they just jump to well, that's impossible. The speed of light is responsible for everything that we do. So then they just attack it regardless of the thought experiment that is meant to. They thought I meant when I'm talking about this stick that stretches. They said the stick would break. The stick can't exist. All these things, but they've missed the point of the fact that you cannot transfer information at faster than the speed of light. That's what the whole point of the video was, by saying the speed of light was debunked, is that if you can transfer, then it's debunked. But they were like, you didn't debunk the speed of light. It's been measured here, and here. I'm like, okay, they'll never get it. They can't fathom. And I understand why, because one admission like that and their whole world breaks down. Right. And it's not the same from our perspective. We don't go through the same thing because we've already given up on the mainstream explanation. And so, yeah, does somebody who's trying to prove the mainstream wrong have to go through some avenues, maybe show some things that are a little bit different than people are used to seeing? Yeah, but unfortunately, that's what you have to do to fight against corruption. Now, for them, they'll go through all those steps, but they're defending corruption. So it's like, what are you guys doing? It's completely different. The truth doesn't need Simon Dan. The truth doesn't need people promoting it. Like, it should just stand on its own. But they had to put these people into place because we started to make too much sense.
Yeah. Their techniques are unbelievable. The very first time I ever came across MC Toon was on Facebook, and I don't know how I friended him, but I guess I didn't know who he was. But I'm sitting there reading a story, and an ex-girlfriend that I had from like 25 years ago came on and said, hey, what's the deal with Bob? What's going on? And he proceeds to come on and start telling her that I'm crazy and a flat earther and all this stuff, and just totally hammering me down to an ex-girlfriend, right? And it's like, who does that, right? Who is so desperate that they have to start seeking out other people's past relationships, to try and convince her that I'm crazy.
Wow.
I know.
I tend to think that Simon Dan is part of this whole J-Trig thing, because I don't know, he uses tactics, and he's really one of the only ones of these guys that I've actually watched, because he did make a couple of videos directed at me, like directly at me. And so of course I had to watch those. And the tactics that he uses are pretty brazen, man. It's pretty bold. Like just straight up lying, misrepresenting things. And it's not by accident. Like it's very deliberate, and psychologically just very sneaky and insidious.
Guess what?
And so I tend to think that Simon Dan may be.
His users don't even see it. It goes right. His users don't even, or his viewers don't even see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed on one of my shows.
Right. Of course not.
He did a whole video about me and was talking about, look, Jeran says that the guys in the control room, all they see is cartoons and CGI, and that they don't actually see real images. Then he goes to the video I was showing, and he shows them sitting all in the control room looking at the screens. And then he zooms in the screen and says, look at Jeran said there's no such thing as images on the screen. What are these? There's images right there. But they were the CGI images. So like he took my argument, showed it, but in a way that made it seem like I was incorrect when I'm like, no, that's the point. The point of the argument is that they see only CGI on the screens. And you just said, look, Jeran says there's no images. There's images right there on the screen. And his whole audience is like, oh, Jaren's a liar.
Yeah, because there's
it's
CGI.
Like, you know, honestly, I've often sat around thinking, like, if I had to be in a camp against flat Earth, how could I fight against flat Earth? And I never could come up with anything. But really, the answer is with subversive tactics, like by lying. And really, that's the only way that you can fight against flat Earth logic, is not with logic. You have to use anti-logical tactics, and that's exactly what they're doing. Like some of these people that are globetards, like I just think that they're stupid. Like they're just not intellectual people, and they're just continue parroting the stuff that we're all very familiar with from our childhood. But then you have others that are, and again, Simon Dan is one of the big ones for me, that are just using obvious tactics, man. And they're not stupid. They're just tricky. They're tricky dicks, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and somebody at some point is organizing a lot of those guys. There's got to be some J-trig at some level in there, and you'll never convince me that there isn't. Because it's kind of like, you know, you find some of them, just like the coordinated effort of Thanks Bob, right? I mean, that went viral and interesting, right? Those went viral. Those are purposely planted, you know, to cause people to say, oh, what's that about? Oh, well, these dumbass flat earthers completely debunked themselves. And they build this whole narrative on a lie. And even though as many times as Jeran and I have explained what actually happened, that doesn't change it. They just keep pushing the narrative of the lie, right? And that's just cheap tactics, point blank. And they wonder why we have no respect for them. And MC Toon, if you're out there still listening, you know, too bad that you're banned from here. I don't want you here. I don't want you here ever. I don't care what you have to say. You mean nothing to me. You're a POS as far as I'm concerned. And why don't you just go mind your own damn business? You're already making enough money off of flat earth as it is. We're not making it, but you certainly are. So, you know, just take a hike, Clyde. I don't care what you have to say or what you're about or anything about you, because you're a liar. So that's all I need to say about that. Because he was in the chat earlier. Oh, you coward, you ban us. That's right. And that way is policy here. Got that? It's policy here. I don't want you here. I don't want your crap here. And I'm not going to listen to it. And neither is my audience. If they want to listen to you, they can go to your channel.
Right. Because if they were honestly looking, then you would be able to tell. And this is something that took me a long time to realize, is that there's a difference between somebody who's honestly asking you questions about the flat earth and somebody who's asking you because they'll never believe it. And we missed that at the beginning. We thought we could convince these guys that are clearly calling you names and attacking you. Those guys they don't want you to be right, so they'll never see it that way. But let me just show this one time. I don't like saying that something happened if I can't show it, just so I can show that this guy can't understand or is purposely just lying to his audience. Oops, see here.
Okay, you're presenting.
This is people we're looking at.
So I think it's right here.
Is this screen? How hard is this to make? Well, this is how far it is in horizontal velocity. This is vertical velocity. This is downrange. It's all simulation data. None of the people at the computers would have any idea. And even if you go back and try and find the views, let me see if I can find one. It might take me a second. Didn't have this set up. But if you look at what these guys are actually looking at on the screens, it's just simulated data. Here we go. None of it is actual video. You can see over here. You can see here. This is a little
So I'm pointing out that none of this is actual video. And it's not. Clearly, this is a CGI view. This is a CGI view. This is a data screen, and this is a data screen. They would never have real footage there. Now, watch what Simon Dan says, and imagine his audience.
Here, you got this little graph.
Amazing. There's actually images up on the screen, and Jeran is saying that there isn't. You can't make it up, can you? Well, there we go. Another tenfold.
Like
he just made it up,
right?
Right. That has to be just completely by design. I mean, there's no other way that he's actually that stupid.
Right.
He can't think.
So he completely misconstrued your point, but because he said it laughing at you, then that's all he has to do. Because I mean, people already think that flat earthers are stupid anyway, right? That's the trope. That's the cliche. And so he doesn't have to do much. He doesn't have to work very hard, even if he gets everything he's saying absolutely wrong.
Right, and he should be. I mean, anybody who's watching me say that understands what I'm saying, and so the only people who wouldn't is his audience. And he just said, "Oh, look at there's actually images on the screen." What is he? Is he telling his audience that these are real images? No, right? I mean, so he had to know that he's proving my point, but in a way that makes me look like I'm lying. But
well, yeah, because image is part
Right.
of computer generated image, right? That's the last word in there, so it's got images.
Wow.
Well, they're banking on people being in such a like delusional, like a cognitive dissonant, desperate state of mind when they watch it to believe flat Earth could never be even true, that they just have to present it in a way that it's that you're lying. It doesn't matter what they say because that person's not even really there. Does that make sense? Like the people that view that, if they come across it, they're in a state of cognitus, and they think flat Earth sounds insane, as most of us did when we first heard it. And so they're in this weird little bubble, so they can just blatantly lie, and they want to create this comfortable paradigm they can leave believing, oh yeah, like I previously thought, flat Earth is crazy. So that's what.
And there's 150,000 people that see his video, and all of them are going to believe that
that's
I'm
insane.
lying. Why would I ever expect anybody to believe me when I start talking? They're like, "Yeah, but you're a liar." Well, I wonder. I'm like, where have they caught me in a lie? When have I lied? And then I'm like looking at stuff like this. I'm like, oh well, of course. If you watch Simon and Dan, then I lie all the time.
Yeah. Well, and that's the whole thing about me too, right? Everybody calls
Yeah.
me a liar because, they say that about the 15-degree rotation thing. It's like, where was I lying about that? I didn't lie about that. Told the truth. I even was candid and saying that, yeah, initially, when we first saw that, we were taken aback, and it's like, wow, what do you say to that? And then we started looking for other explanations. Hang on a second, John. We started looking for other explanations, and it wasn't long before I found the Michelson-Gale explanation, and it was maybe a week after that we came up with the new gyroscope test, right? Which all those results, by the way, were sent to the producers of Behind the Curve. And they completely obfuscated him 100%, didn't even give them a mention at all. And I even went so far as to release all of that data publicly. And it's funny because the ballers were pretty silent about it, because what they found out is everything I said was absolutely the truth. But I'm a liar, right? But the only time I'm telling the truth is when I say we found a 15-degree rotation, but I'm lying because it wasn't the Earth, it was the ether. That's what they say. It's ridiculous.
They must want us to lie too. If they want me to say that me saying interesting proved curvature, that would be a lie. And it would be a lie for anybody in that movie to say that we prove curvature, which is why the movie didn't say it. So these guys aren't even smart enough to deduce from that by them saying, well, you're a liar, you proved curve. And no, I'm actually telling the truth by saying I did not. That's what you don't understand. I know what the movie shows, but that's not what the truth is.
Could you imagine being held to the same standards, or having people like Simon and Dan being held to the same standards as flat earthers? I mean, they go back and they double check on every little claim that we make, every little fact that we reference, everything that we say gets fine-tooth combed. But it seems like the people that are watching these guys and people like Simon and Dan, they can get away with pretty much saying fucking anything. They get shit wrong all the time. They misrepresent facts, and nobody seems to care. And they go and get 150,000 views on a shitty video, and it's not like he's putting out great content. It's pretty shit, right? But he just does phenomenally well.
I wonder if anybody,
on his videos.
I'm sure everybody who's watching this, but I would assume understands that he just lied about me in that video, and I knew what I was talking. They knew what I was talking about. They knew what he's trying to get around. So just looking down here, there's 3,727 comments. I would probably bet anything that not one comment is from somebody saying, actually, I think you were mistaken. He said that there's no video, there's no real images or video on the screen, that it's just data and CGI. And then you zoomed in and says, there's actually images on the screen. You can't make this up. But out of those 3,700, almost 4,000 comments, I guarantee you not one. And that's scary to think. Not one person said, actually, I think, Simon Dan, you missed a point there. You're calling somebody a liar when he's not a liar. Not one person. I guarantee you every single comment in there is, he's an idiot. I don't know why people still watch him. He's a grifter. Why doesn't he get a real job? This kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
But Jeran, you got to understand that it's coming.
Oh, yeah.
Coming from a background of psychological operation, dude. Like, if that is set up by the government, which I wouldn't be surprised people like him are, or that content, then they understand what state, like to a science, what state of mind the people that go and watch that video are going to be in, and what they need to convey to them to keep them in a victorious state of mind that aids their cognizance of their prior belief.
You mean like when they wheel out the guy from the vaccination clinic dead in a bag, and then everybody stands in line still because it's a safe and effective vaccine?
Yeah, or like the CNN chick, right? Remember last week when we were covering the CNN chick, who was talking about one of our biggest inspirations for promoting this lie or promoting this whatever it is, flat Earth, is because of all the money there is to be made out of it. And she goes, yeah, if you search flat Earth, there's just millions and millions of hits. It's like, yeah, of opponents and the flat Earthers. Yeah,
she even admits that. She goes, yeah, but they did a good job of making sure you can't find them now when you look. Oh yeah, so we're still in it for the money, but we can't find our videos when you search.
And we're not monetized. You can't get monetized or anything like that. I mean, I
such a joke, dude. I went around telling everyone the Earth's flat and went broke to do it. Yeah. Tell this girl, holler at me. Who she know? Hook me up, bro.
I lost my house, so
I just don't see how someone could go and write a book about flat Earth and fail to research flat Earth even one little iota.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, all right. So we're getting about time to wrap up. I do want to cover a couple more things just really quick. And this, of course, is hilarious because yet again, here's a brand new article. NASA's new budget means it won't be going back to the moon anytime soon. So it's like, once again, it's put us off. March 11th, 2022. So this is 2 days old. This is a brand new article, right? And, a bunch of rhetoric. It doesn't matter. They're still getting billions. They're collecting, $62 million a day these days. And yet they're not going to be going to the moon or anything like that. And yet the Defense Department is saying that they're going to put they're going to militarize the lunar surface, right? For what? Nobody's going to go there. So what? Space Force is going to have their own base or what? I mean, these people don't even listen to each other.
It's just stories that they tell.
It costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to put bases on the moon. So
if you guys didn't hear my conversation with James True yesterday, we got into some interesting things that he kind of thinks some of the lies are necessary. It's kind of weird perspective, but when you hear it out, he kind of convinced me. I'm like, you know what? You're right. Like, picture this. Picture if we went to the moon and everybody died. Okay. Picture that. And then they tried it a couple more times and everybody died. Picture having to teach that in school. It's a literal impossibility. You could not have a functioning society or country if your stories of greatness involved death. So you have to go to the moon and you have to complete that mission. It's like they had to. There's no, that you cannot not complete it. So it's like even more evidence of me that it's a total fraud, because it was meant to build the prestige. And guess what? It built the prestige for the Russians too. That's why anybody telling you, well, the Russians would have admitted that it was fake. No, both countries built their own people's prestige over it. Russia just tells their people, we were the first ones in space. We were the first woman in space, first animal in space, first orbit, first satellite. We realized that we shouldn't go to the moon because there ain't fucking shit there. And the stupid Americans spent all their money going to the moon and doing nothing. That's the story that's told in Russia. So it isn't that they would rat us out. No, they got to tell their side of the story and we get to tell our side, and both ones build the prestige and the my country's great feeling from both their citizens. And that's the point of these stories.
Right, that's why you can miss me with the let's go Russia thing right now.
The Russians and the United States are on the ISS, faking space together as friends.
Right.
Yeah, and now Russia's threatening to take it, blah, 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 blah. It's like, dude, it's all a lie. They're like, oh, I'm going to be woke and I'm going to be for Russia. Well, no, I mean, Russia's very close to the North Pole, bro. Where you been? You think they're not in on something? Like they said they're in space right now. Come on.
Part of the World Economic Forum. So we know that he's not some hero. And again, we've been predicting that there's going to be an accident in space soon, so that they can then say we can only send robots. It's only safe to send robots. And that'll be it wouldn't surprise me if we hear that the ISS crashed in the ocean and they say it was because of Russia, because then that will build even more hate for Russia. Plus, we can no longer take people to space because robots, Russia wouldn't have done that if it was just robots up there. They did it because of the human life. So there's so many things they can build off of that. I wouldn't be surprised if the ISS takes a dip.
Yeah.
It was actually
Crazy,
a
bro.
week after they announced that it would be decommissioned in 2030 too, right? So it's not even, people wouldn't even be able to be upset, like, rebuild it. We need another space station, because they would go, well, we're going to get rid of it in a couple of years anyway. So, we don't need to rebuild it. It's just in the ocean now.
Yeah, no reason to have lies up in space whenever you have your UN Sustainable Development Laws of Agenda 2030 here. I mean, come on, we're past that.
It's hilarious. Oh, well, so we're not going to have any civilians up on the moon, but we will have lots of military presence there, and they'll have a FedEx drop box up there, which is pretty cool because that's going to come in handy. So yeah, it's just funny. How do these people, and this is like Phys.org. Why is an article like this in Phys.org? What kind of retardedness is this?
What? Goodness.
I know. Unbelievable.
Or like,
right.
yeah, look, India found water on the moon, right? But it was like 35 years after NASA was there. Like, we went 6 times and didn't figure out that there's water there. Pretty impressive work.
Yeah, I just saw that. I just saw it a couple days ago. There's a ton of water on the moon. I'm like, dude, I can't even look at my phone anymore.
And they already got proven liars because they found an element there, so-called, right? They found an element that they named, I forgot the name of it. It's a combination of Buzz Aldrin and Armstrong and Collins. But then somebody found it on Earth just a few years later, and they're like, oh, yeah, well, it's also on Earth, but...
Yeah. and wasn't the moon supposed to be full of like helium-3 or something like that also?
Yeah,
and
now they say all over. There's none on Earth, but you can go get it from the moon. There's tons of it.
Yeah.
Oh, they actually just discovered it's made of pixie dust, bro.
It sounds more realistic to me.
Yeah. All I can say, honestly...
You snort it?
The people that have looked into flat Earth and have looked into the ball Earth, and if you have been looking into it for years, like these clowns like MC Toon and Danny Faulkner, and Danny Faulkner is even worse because it goes against his very religion, because the Bible is a flat Earth book cover to cover. There can be no denying that whatsoever. And so that's just another...
At very least fits. At very least, there's too many verses that say flat out that the Earth does not move. That for anybody to say, wow, it doesn't move in its orbit. Shut the hell up. What the hell are you talking about?
It's moving in multiple directions.
Dude, a movable and fixed as it spins on a tilted wobbling axis revolving.
Going around the sun,
dude,
going around the
perfect sense.
Going around the Milky Way, going around the Great Attractor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's unbelievable.
The sun stopped, but my guy can do anything.
And really, fixed and movable is about as clear terms as you can get. I mean, that's almost like a lawyer wrote that. Fixed and immovable, but not limited to, right? I mean, come on, it doesn't get much more plain than that.
It couldn't get much more specific. Yeah, what else should they have said? Should they have thought, well, they're going to take fixed and movable and somehow make it spin as the opposite. So let's get more descriptive here.
All right.
All right, I'll probably cover this next week, but I will say a couple things about this Bart Sibrel book that I've been reading. It's actually surprisingly good, guys. And if you get a Kindle, some sort of a Kindle trial for 30 days, you can actually read it for free. So you could get it, read it, and then just cancel it. But wow, stuff.
That's the thing. Bart Sibrel does great work, man. He really does great work. I can't understand how he doesn't come all the way over to being a flat earther. I mean, he's halfway there, with understanding that NASA's full of crap and faking space, but for some reason he just really loves giant balls.
He may have gotten threatened, John, because you wouldn't believe what he went through. I mean, he was drugged. He was, they used like EMP weapons to stall his car in the middle of the highway. He was chased all over the place. He was arrested multiple times. He was drugged several times. He was put in an insane asylum. All of this shit, man, just because they didn't want him going to CNN and his buddy there to release this story publicly, right? And I was just sitting there going, I can't believe what this guy went through. Holy cow.
The only reason I can see him not becoming a flat earther is because if he believes strongly in his evidence, which is what he found them clearly faking it from the other side of a plane, it also confirms orbits. And so he can't to fathom the thought of, well, we see them in orbit, so how could they not be in orbit? He realizes the lie of the distance and them showing a fake Earth, but he can't quite grasp, well, aren't they in orbit? That's the Earth that they're showing is the real Earth. They just use a cardboard cutout to make it look smaller. So
show them just magnetic levitation, bro, and be like, come on over here, bro. We're making t-shirts.
Yeah, no doubt. But anyway, crazy stuff. All right. Well, I'll cover the rest of this next week. But yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. And guys, I also want to make an announcement. You know, I haven't really been doing the Wednesday show. I've had a lot of things going on, and you know, had some health issues, but getting those worked out. And what I've decided to do is I'm going to keep the Sunday show, I think, open to everybody, and I'm going to make the Wednesday show the Rockfin only content, because that's what we'll be doing, you know, releasing our leading edge research and stuff like that. And I think that'll probably be a better fit all the way around. At least I want to try it that way. So I just wanted to let you guys know, don't give up on us. It's mostly been me because I have not been feeling that great, but hopefully we're going to get my problems in order here and get those worked out. So just wanted to say that. And let's see, other than that, that's about all I have. So let me go around one more time with everybody and see what everybody's got this coming up week. And then we'll be seeing you probably on a Wednesday night show for a Rockfin only exclusive. So Austin, what do you got coming up, sir, besides getting married and having a new beautiful bride and new life?
Yeah, man, getting married, but I also send this stuff in. So the attorney against me, like, he popped right in the first time I filed something, which happened to be on 22222, like completely unplanned. And that was a request for omissions and a request for productions. And the next day I sent in a motion. Anyway, the government jumped in real fast, all eager and arrogant, and didn't know that I obviously had, like, my, humbly as I can say, kick-ass motion to go. And so they jumped in, and then I put that. Then he filed for a motion to continue the bench trial so he could have more time to respond. And then it was granted, and we were given certain deadlines for additional motions. And then his response it's like a flat Earth globe Earth debate where the glober does not respond to any of the arguments, but then just touts victory. It's literally that bad. But anyway, so what's very interesting, and I'll just say this one thing. I'm not going to read too much about it. I'm writing something. It has to get sent in by tomorrow, but a line in the next motion I'm sending is, further investigation proves the accuracy of this description as it can be verified through successful practical use cases of various military technologies, physical measurements, scientific experimentation, and proper application of natural law. And that is a legally relevant line in the next motion I'm about to post or file on record. So pretty epic. So we got some epic stuff in the works, man. It should be an exciting next few weeks.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, it's funny, Austin, is one thing that Toon and Danny Faulkner were talking about is, you know, some of the legalities around this too. And, you know, they were kind of giving us a slam on this, but what they omitted to admit to everybody is that, you know, when it came down to it, when Flat Earth went to court, the Flat Earth won. So,
well, they were talking about how I talk about Flat Earth, which they made it as applied relevant. So should get very interesting. You know, like it's legally relevant because of what they did. And I'm speaking tactically, but just trust me, you know, it's pretty epic.
That's awesome. All right. Well, beautiful. So, all right. Well, I wish you good luck on that and hope everything comes out for you. And, you know, we'll see you next week then. All right.
So, and let me say this one thing. Okay. Sorry. Let me re-say, I'm sorry. I said at the beginning, but I think if anyone does want to hang out, if you're in the area or want to come hang out in Florida or whatever it is, we're going to go to a place called Newton Park in Fort Myers Beach on the 20th, which is the spring equinox. Just come hang out. We're just going to like brunch, cook out, have a good time, just chill. Just to throw that out there in the ether.
Awesome. Okay. That sounds good. Are you going to put something on your channel about it or Facebook or something?
Yeah. I'll put together a little like video or something about the meetup and I'll put it on everything.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. So let's move on over to you, John, and tell us what you got coming up, sir.
Yeah. Good show, guys. Good hanging out with you. I'm hoping to get some content up on the TheMorgile on YouTube soon. I'm still.
Oh boy, you're breaking
list,
up,
but
John.
hopefully that'll be soon. And I'll see soon. But I got to come and visit with you and Cami, Bob. So just let me know when you want to do. Oh, okay. Well, I'll let you guys go. Have a good show. Happy Sunday to you, and I will see you next week.
Okay, sounds good. Beautiful. And yeah, I'll give you a call because I think what all you need is we just need to get you another power supply for it. Because even if the battery's dead, you should be able to run it off the power supply. But we'll figure that out, and then that way you can do some presentations and stuff, which would be nice. So there you go. All right, so
Yeah, for sure, man.
Let's go ahead and bring it around to Iru. Iru, what do you got going on, sir?
Well, right now, after we end the show, I'm going to start a live stream talking about, with a friend of mine, talking about certain things on the actual war that we are, suffering all over the place. Could be fake or not, but it has a real impact in our real lives.
Yeah, it does.
And yes, so I'm going to be talking, I like to talk beside the most common things on wars, talking about politics and economic things like that. I also like to address the religious perspective of these type of wars and some other stuff that maybe you cannot see in the mainstream media, or maybe those YouTubers or people in the social networks are really, really smart, but just addressing the regular topics of the war. So I like to do another kind of research. And so I'm going to make in that type of live streams. And a few days ago, I post, of course, in Spanish, but we commemorate the first Flat Earth conference here in Argentina, taking place 2 and 3 of March of 2019, which was really crazy and put the flat Earth topic in all over the place in the Spanish community. So I uploaded a little interview that I received on a small TV channel. And in fact, we are planning to do a new one on May, I think 25 of May, which is the Revolution Day of Argentina, the supposedly Revolution Day. So we are going to do another Flat Earth conference here in Argentina to trying to spread the word. And beside that, as always, I am taking care now of a free channel and one web page. So it takes me a lot of time, but I really enjoy to do it. So I keep doing it.
Okay, awesome. That's awesome, Iru. Okay, well, good luck with that. And gosh, one of these days I'd love to be able to go down there, but not during all this craziness. But
all of you are invited to my house with any extra cost than the flight ticket. So for you guys, it's very, very cheap to stay in Argentina 1 month. It's really, really cheap. I mean, with $300 you can live here really good and make flights and travel all around the country. So anytime, there is no vaccination limit. You can have a lot of vaccines or no vaccines. 100 vaccines or no vaccines to enter into Argentina.
That's
so
beautiful,
you can
man.
came here.
No age discrimination, dude. Kai and I might have to come out there.
Yeah, so maybe a honeymoon. You want to come with your new wife, man? You are so invited.
Awesome. All right, cool, Iru. Sounds good, sir. And before I go to Jeran, I want to read off a couple of thank yous for some super chats. Flat Earth Dude says, join the discussion 24/7 Flat Earth Discord at https://discord.gg/3FSCNWC. And that's actually a really good Discord channel. I listen to those guys talk all the time. And there's actually a girl in there, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but my God, she is really, really sharp. I wouldn't mind getting her on Globebusters just to, have another female perspective. I think some of these women are really, really sharp when it comes to flat Earth theory. And so, yeah, that's a great channel. And then also to Elizabeth Mickles, who says, a note of appreciation for all the work you guys do. Thanks so much. And thank you so much for that, Elizabeth. And let me go to the Rockfin. All right, so thank you from Bob One Richardson. Wow, that's a very generous tip. Thank you so much for that, Bob. That's awesome. Deborah Rondow says, thanks, Globebusters. Had to tip, couldn't stand seeing $66 too long. All right, thanks for that, Deborah. Steve Matthews says, great show, thanks. I really enjoy these topics. So do we, Steve, and I'm glad you're here with us. And Julie Bennett, Globebusters, always a supporter you are, Julie. And you're definitely one of our top fans, if not our top fan, absolutely. And you are very, very much appreciated. Got one from Shekel Graberberg. Says, hi guys, can anyone tell me where to find an FE map of the ley lines laid out, please? I was just looking at those this week. So Shekel Graberberg, I think we can probably dig it up because we were looking at something like that. And it's kind of interesting. So yeah, I will look for that. I can't point you to it directly, but I have seen them before. And at one time, I actually had my logo set up that way for Xanadude 60. So we'll see if we can get that for you. Deb Younger sends in a tip and doesn't say anything, no comment. Murray Cole, thank you so much for the tip. Much appreciated. Jeff Russ, thank you so much for the tip. Tom Nixon, thank you so much for the tip. And then Mixlick says, at Globebusters in 2025, when I become a crypto millionaire, I really want to buy you guys a Go Fast rocket so we can slam it into the dome with a bang. What do you think about that? I think it would be cool. Well, I don't know. It's not rocket light, right? I would be afraid of it. It would be that instantaneous stop at the end. So, awesome. All right. So that's all we have for the super chats and stuff. So Jeran, back around to you. What do you got coming up, sir?
Same old. Yeah, check out. We should be back on Thursday with a Baby Truther show, I think, and then I'll do my show on Friday. And that's about it. Doing some consultations, getting a few more of those, so people, if they're interested in getting involved in crypto, if you're not, it's not going away. Just letting you know that it's not me shilling the business or anything. It's just the truth. It's digital money is coming, and it's also not ushering in the Great Reset if you get the right kind of digital currency. What you don't want to do is sit around and wait for the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, which is coming, which will track everything you do and will kind of be even closer to the end. So let's not let that happen.
Exactly. And, I absolutely am invested in cryptocurrency and will continue to be. And it's like anything else, guys. If you do your research on it and you're careful and you think it out and, think it out thoroughly and thoughtfully, you're probably going to be okay. And there's a lot of people, a lot of places for good information. But as always, be wary because there's also scams in that like every place else. But, in this particular case, one bad apple doesn't ruin the whole group. And, I've made quite a bit of money actually in crypto, not as much as I would have liked. If I would have held on to all the crypto that I had, I'd be, wow, well, would I be good?
I sent Bob a text yesterday because I realized I keep all my old texts, and I was like, oh, I wonder when I started talking about Bitcoin. So I went and searched Bitcoin in my text messages, and sure enough, there came a text from Bob in 2016 where he said, Bitcoin just hit 750. Like, wow, 750. It's like, Bob, you and I should be rich. What the hell did we do?
I know. We blew it. Oh, well, hopefully we can get through this. But yeah, it's going to get a lot more expensive. I mean, fuel has gone way up and we have no idea how high it's going to go, but it's going to get a lot ugly before it gets better. And of course, it's all going to be, blamed on Russia. And whether that's the truth or not is irrelevant because, we certainly know that our political system is 100% to blame for all of this, as well as them and all of their cronies, that just want to take over the world and have everything for themselves. But that's the way it is.
Either blame Biden or Russia when clearly it's just inevitable what would have happened.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, crazy. So anyway, guys, we'll see you next time. And thanks for joining us. And you guys have a wonderful day. Until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind because there's truth inside. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.